Well, hey, folks there. Welcome to episode 13 of the Bitcoin Breakout. I think it's 31, 36 of the Survival Podcast at the same time. I have a really special show for you guys today. I have Brian Harrington and the guy Swann on, and we're going to be talking about the Layer 3 revolution. I do see some chatter on my channel. People wondering what happened to the video this morning that I did with John Willis and Nicole Sauce. The YouTube Gestapo did not take it down. I did. I decided to give John and Nicole exclusive on that video and let them have exclusive on it. So you can go find it on their channels unrelated to this. So the reason we're doing this today is I've been thinking more and more about Layer 3, using Lightning as Layer 2 and Layer 3 applications like the Fountain app that many of you guys are familiar with out there. And I was like, you know what? This is going to eat everything. Like I always said Bitcoin would eat everything, but I didn't know how Bitcoin was going to eat everything. And now that I see this massive app rollout beginning, and Guy, I was just listening to your most recent episode, and you were talking about a messaging app that's basically in this vein as well. Yeah, and I was like, I want to do a show on this, and I'm like, I need more minds than my own on this so that we can kind of roundtable it. So thank you both for being here. Would both of you maybe just say a word or two leading off to kind of where do you see this all going with basically monetizing apps and using app monetization to make them better and also to reduce abuse?
I can go first. So to the audience, so I was behind on this. And this morning, like being on to talk to you all, like Jack, this was a great forcing function for me because I had been watching a lot of like payment splits and kind of like very new things happening, but I hadn't dove in and wasn't running any of the apps on my phone yet. So this morning I started running Fountain, working on getting my show like signed up for it right now. Like when I think about payment splits the most, I've just been really on kind of like a brick and mortar like kick, which is part of why I've been behind like on this. So that's where I'm like coming into it today. But I can just already see that being able to have payment splits, I think it just helps. It helps like run better tests of things, and it helps smaller ideas gain traction like faster because you can feel the monetization starting. So that's kind of where my brain is like starting the conversation.
Yeah, I think there's a good analogy actually between what the internet did for like the typical business. Is that like, you know, a small business that could run a simple website could look just as big on the internet as the biggest business in the world, right? And in that same vein is that like we can have any sort of royalty split or payment arrangement that we could dream up between just the three of us. There's no third party. There's nobody else involved. I don't have to ask permission. Nobody has to get a license. I can plug it into my BTC Pay. I can plug it into my Fountain app. I can plug it into any of the 13 or 15 wallets or so that I have on my phone. Like it's just open. You know, I was just talking about this with somebody the other day, but it's still like every once in a while, I still just kind of like stop and go, holy shit, I'm running my own payment processor on my website. You know, like people, the amount of times that I fight with integration with WooCommerce or Square or some stupid thing that doesn't give me the feature or the thing that I want. The fact that like that's just not even part of my world anymore because I've just decided to just ignore it. Like I think it's just a matter of time. Like this is going to happen. Like it was so cool. I didn't even know we were going to do the like split payment for this. And the fact that I was just like already on Fountain and you're like, okay, well, I've got your pub key. So, you know, just immediate split payment for this show. Like I was just like, that's cool as shit. I didn't even have to do anything. We just set up a split royalty payment for a podcast. Like in no time over email. Like, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're doing the live feed now and I'll publish the audio after the fact. And when I do that, I'll go into Fountain, but it could be any app or any way of managing it. And I'll just say, give 20% to Guy and give 20% to Brian. And Brian and I were talking before this and he was trying to get his podcast claim. And I'm like, he's like, but I don't need and I know you don't need your podcast. I mean, you just need an account or a pub key. And then instead of like, I do a 20% split with my web admin for everything that we do with the podcast because he takes care of so much stuff, does so much work. Well, I'm not paying him. So we'll get to the tax disintermediation there in a second. But the fact that I can then say, but I want for just this one episode to take these two awesome guys and cut them in at 20% on any boostograms or streams as well. That's huge. And then, where can we go from that? Like somewhere halfway between brick and mortar is a physical deliverable product. And I'm by Friday next week, I should have my new swag store launched where we're going to be doing print on demand shirts, cups, all that, stuff everybody does. And I don't think we're quite where we can do this just yet, but wouldn't it be great if a customer made a payment, the amount that has to go to the print on demand company went to them, the amount that has to go to the people that run my swag shop for me goes to them, and the amount that comes to me goes to me. And that's instantaneous, instant settlement. It's done. It doesn't even matter if it's dollars on one side and either Bitcoin or dollars on the other. We can still do that split using Lightning. But the beautiful thing is the way this manual process works, like my people are going to have to once a quarter give me a report. That report's going to say what they sold, what they owe me. Then they're paying me. So then there's a W4 or whatever at the end of that. Like if you do this thing, you disintermediate this entire process. Even if everybody's paying the man their share, you're still disintermediating this massive amount of administration, and it's clean.
Yeah.
It just in mentioning that with like merchandise and like physical products and stuff, you think about it, like this is actually one of those things that could lead to a freemium model in the physical world. When you're talking about like how Anchor or like some of these like hosting places will actually offer you the original service for free in order to get royalties or shares of what you're doing later on, specifically with the birth of like additive manufacturing and 3D printing and things where you can iterate very, very quickly and you can easily and cheaply make custom items. You could literally have it so that like you could reach out, and if you had like any size followers or any number of things that you could offer a product and then just split share with the brands, like every single product in your store could split with a different person that you sold, and you could have basically just this aggregate producer that partnered with all of these different people.
And minimums, like the minimums are what's stopping that crossover everywhere right now.
Exactly.
Like because like certain fulfillment at every level and payment processors at every level, there's a minimum, and you'll like hit that, and that's what messes up like fledgling like partnerships.
And what's the minimum on Lightning? Like I've
one
like
sat.
Nothing. There's one sat maybe. There's like there could be nobody on Fountain listening to this. You could get one boost, 100 sats, 20 will go to Brian, 20 will go to me, 80 or 60 will go to Survival Pod. That's just nuts.
And 20 will go to Tom, or it was a little bit less.
Whatever.
Fountain will get their 4, right? Like, but that's fine because they've made my job of managing those splits. I have an app and I can do it in seconds. I can do it. I'm not going to miskey something and all of a sudden Brian's getting 90% of the show, the whole show, right? Like, and even if I do it, like as soon as I see it, I can just turn it off and change it, right? And that, to me, that's really exciting, and it starts to like make me wonder what else we can do. And so one of the things I kind of sent to you guys back channel when I started this up is I started thinking about doing this episode when I was on my way back from Tennessee, and I was hooking like 98. And I see the thing comes up on Waze, and it's like little flashing lights. There's a cop ahead. So I slow it down, and man, it was just in time. He was out. He had his John Law gun out there, and I'm like, wait a minute. Whoever reported him just saved me an encounter with law enforcement that I don't want. Probably a pretty nasty ticket, right? And everything's legal, but I got guns in the vehicle. I got all kinds of gear because I've gone to an event. It begets a lot of questions. Even if nothing bad happens, I might have been there for half an hour while they're, well, what's this? What's that? Like, if I could have said, dude, here's $5.
Thank you.
I wouldn't even have, like, my wife would have been like, $5? Like, give him 10. I was hooking ass on that particular one. Another one, I was like 10 over. I probably have been like, give that guy $5 or $2 or $1. But how many hundreds or thousands of people saw that alert slowed down and didn't get a ticket or an encounter because of that? And I would just ask you, like, if you guys use Waze or an app like it?
I did while I was out in LA. I actually don't know what made me, maybe it was like a new phone or something. I never re-downloaded it, and I have not even hadn't thought about it in ages, actually.
I don't really use it unless I'm traveling long distance. That's, I don't know where I'm going. But like if it was monetized that way and you knew, hey, if I use this, road hazards, John Law, etc., are all going to get tagged because the person tagging it has the potential to gain. The app would work better. And if I was choosing between two apps and one was monetized and one wasn't, which one are you going to use?
Yeah. It's micro incentives, it's essentially like in the crowd economy, like, because there's something really unique, this really interesting trade-off between like taking the wisdom of the crowd and using the efficiency from like a centralized service or a centralized idea. And the internet was truly the beautiful thing about the internet was finding tools to use the wisdom of the crowd. And knowing where to lean on them and where not to. Wikipedia is one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. It is unbelievable that Wikipedia can possibly exist as a free-to-edit idea. Like that, it really, truly is incredible. And we curate all of the content on the internet. Again, everybody knows this, but Twitter, Facebook, like these institutions, they don't make content. We make the content for them. 30 years ago, if you explained that all the average users were going to engage and make the content, not only would they, like, I don't have to speculate, they literally did. People proposed this, and TV executives laughed them out of the room. They were like, that's retarded. People want to sit on their couch and just be fed stuff. Nobody's going to interact with it. Nobody's going to make content. YouTube is going to be the biggest disaster in the world. It makes no sense. And it's the largest media platform on the planet. Who knew?
It is.
The ability to do that in an entirely new way, to find monetization methods of that are without the centralized parties, is a second level revolution of that exact same movement. It's the ability to properly incentivize and monetize good content, to separate the quality without having the control or the third party involved. And when there's going to be 100 different ways that we try value for value and streaming sats, and the shit's not going to work. There's going to be all these different ways where we don't realize exactly the cost of the microtransaction and just having to think about, is this worth a penny or 2 pennies? That judgment is just too difficult. But there's going to be something that clicks. There's going to be something that just is simple. It's like a standard, and it just sticks and it works, and it makes something. It just makes something work that didn't work before. And when that happens, it's going to be like an avalanche. Like everything is going to move in at an incredible speed. And I think I feel like we're getting close. I don't know. Like maybe I'm overzealous because I use all of the little tools and I love it. And I thought it was just cool as shit that I, read the email. And it's like, your pub key's in there and I've already split payment. And I'm like, hot damn, that's cool. But I don't know. It's going to be crazy. Something is going to happen.
I think that's really well articulated, because the majority of like decentralization movements or like anti-establishment movements, the people that start them off get burnt out. So you get burnt out because you're trying to push a very large rock. You're trying to push this very large thing. But now because of monetization, you're able to like get paid to grow it. And that's why Bitcoin is the most well-financed anti-establishment creation that's ever existed. And so that that's interesting. Because we can't, I was thinking about this in preparation for today. I understand the anti big tech, I guess, stuff, but I've kind of always thought about I don't want to fight the government and the tech companies at the same time. That's just way too mumuch work. That's just way too much work. So all of the banging on the tech executives and stuff, I'm just I don't have, I just left politics. I'm trying to stop banging on politicians. I'm trying to just ignore that and just do my thing. I don't want to then find a whole new angle of banging on these guys instead, where it's here's a brick and mortar example I always give to people is at AAA, you can go buy your stickers for your license plate at AAA, Like, instead of standing in the line over here, you can pay this company to get the stickers here. And that's like solving something. Like, you're solving all the stress of going to the DMV, solving all, like, now there's this, like, all of the bureaucracy everywhere we face central planning and side effects from central planning. You can find little paths through it, and the people that build the little paths through it can get paid. Because then the other problem, like this, someone able to write a program that then sends out micro splits, like that, then whoever writes the program, the simplest for like quote unquote normies to sign up for, can get paid. Like even today, yeah, like they can get paid. And I think this is like in crypto, they talk a lot about like DAOs. Like, this is a DAO. Like, you don't have to overcomplicate it. Like, you don't have to overcomplicate.
Doesn't need a blockchain. Like, why?
You don't. Yeah, like, and that's why I enjoy relaying this to people. Like, you don't have to overcomplicate the word metaverse. You don't have to overcomplicate the word DAO. Like, I'm talking to Jack and Guy right now in the metaverse, and we have a DAO for this episode because we're all getting paid. You know, like, we're using technology, using Bitcoin to spread positive information in a way that's like sustainable and not burning us out. Like, that is cool.
Yeah, and I think there's like a lot of room to do more. So, for instance, that won't happen until the audio side goes out because it's through the audio podcast that payment comes in. Mm-hmm. But I use the Albi extension right now. So if somebody is sitting here in a browser watching this video, they could tip me with Lightning right now or give me value for value with Lightning with the Albi extension. Wouldn't it be great if that was splittable? So that right now, during the live stream, we have that DAO structure going that somebody's like, you know what, these guys are awesome. Here's $50. And it just goes, boom. Well, we're kind of building something like that right now for a different project. But it would then, that's the thing, you build it for something totally use case specific, but then it works for anything. You like, and that's the beauty of this. If it's going to be a tech arms race, when you build a piece of tech and kind of an open source model, then making it do something else is way easier than making it work the first time. And so that could scale anywhere. There's so many places this, I think, should go. I just look at my phone and start saying, okay, what apps do I use regularly? I use Kindle because, well, everything's on Kindle. But you'll be reading a book and somebody will highlight something. You're like, maybe I should pay a little more attention to that. Right? So you pay, and you know what? I'm going to highlight that too, because that is a good excerpt. I'm going to want to have that kind of in my bank of things to review in the future. What if when I did that, that person got a tip? Or what if I read something that's really profound and I just say, you know what, this author's awesome, I want to do that. Or here's a funny drunken wife story. So my wife was pretty lit one night and we were listening to old music and we were listening to Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell. We're listening to a whole album because it's like a whole orchestratic thing. And she goes, you know what, we should call Meatloaf and tell him he rocks. I bet no one ever tells him he rocks anymore, and he still rocks. And I'm like, wow, what if she could just say, you know, I'm really enjoying it. Here's $5 to Meatloaf. Like, how much better is that than the model that he has with Spotify or whoever? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what can't you do that with? Like Audible.com, right? Not Bitcoin Audible, but Audible.com. People listen to audiobooks on there. And you have some books, I think, that are on Audible, right, Guy, that you read that are now available on
like
Audible.
14.
Yeah. What if every time, like, if they were basically somebody, when they were listening to an audiobook app, were streaming sats to you as the author and narrator, the same way they stream sats to me when they listen to my podcast. Or if you wrote the book and you weren't the narrator, or you have the deal with because that's what you do. I think you're the narrator, somebody else wrote the book. That could split while that app's being listened to.
It could split while the app is being listened to, and you could remove Audible from the 60% cut.
Disintermediate, like you take Audible from a 60% to a 4%-ish share, because if somebody's doing all that back end for me and I don't have to touch it, they want 4 or 5%. You can have it. Or if you thought
it's also better for the listener then, because you don't have to pay for a logged subscription. You're not locked into a payment plan, because that, again, back to the minimums. The whole reason why software as a service is selling payment plans and everything's $15, $17, $18 a month now is because they have to hit these minimums. Like for this, so they're writing the software, they're putting all this upfront cost into writing the software, and then they're having to sell monthly subscriptions at the minimums that make sense for the credit card and for all their like overhead. And so that's why all our credit cards are dinged for all of these like things. But it's almost then like pay per mile insurance, or pay per everything becomes pay-per-view. So I just want to throw that out there. Like, it sounds like, because people have said the other side of like, oh, this is bad. Now I'm just going to get like nickel and dimed everywhere I go. But it's like the market will then set the rate. Like, the market will set the rate. And I don't think it'll feel like we already feel nickel and dimed by like having to sign up for subscriptions everywhere.
Yeah, but so like that's really starts to show the creator the value that they're putting out and where it is. So I can pull up Fountain. I can just literally watch and see transactions coming in every minute. So I might see 3 or 4 people at one time streaming me sats as the podcast's going. And when I see a guy like, and he's streaming like 8 sats a minute, and then all of a sudden he's only there for like 10 minutes and he goes away, I guess he was. And then I see him come back and he readjusted his sats to 4. I'm like, well, I guess I'm not really hitting his. It's still good, but he's setting his own rate for that, right? Mm-hmm. Or then you see somebody like they're streaming like 2 and they come back and also they're streaming like 20 sats a minute, like that. Like, obviously, like, I'm really jiving with this guy, and I think that apps like Breeze and Fountain and stuff in the podcast space, they might have a whole new monetization level. Because if I had like a place I could log in, and I could see like these are the parts of my show where people really pay attention. Yeah. And these are the parts where they don't, I can make my product better. Yep. Or like software as a service. Yep. If I build this software suite and it's $299 a year, there's a lot of them like that. They're ASP software now. But now you can rent it by 10-minute blocks. And I find out that all the people renting it are using 20% of the features. And the other 80% that my devs are so sure is the best thing that's ever, no one uses it. No one cares. Stop working on that.
Yep.
Yeah, there's that's actually what I brought up while I was talking to there's a new app. They don't have, there's only like 4 or 5 things that are basically debuting to test out like how it works. But it's called Get Mash. I just did an interview with Jesse Berger, the author of Magic Internet Money, and then Jared Nusinoff, who is, I think, is like lead product at Get Mash. But it's a fiat onboarding, so you just like pay with a credit card or whatever, and it automatically gives you the equivalent on Lightning, and then you can just integrate with any of these sorts of services. And it's essentially just like a couple of lines of code that you put into your website or something, and then you can do all sorts of things. You can do streaming sats. You can do like what they've got with Jesse Berger's book, which is what they're kind of testing out this idea with, is pay per page. That you can you can freely the book is just available, and you go to it, you log into Mash, and it tells you what the quote unquote rate is, and you can set like your budget, like by default. You do that once, and then that's just kind of what happens when you go to any page that runs with this, and you just browse through the book. So if somebody quotes like a certain part, and you're like, oh, I just want to read this chapter, you could just go read the chapter, and you pay 90 cents or $1.20 or something like that for just the chapter. And if you want to read the whole book, you just get the whole book. But you start to see the window. You know, what happened with the subscription model is that media on the internet, when the medium itself that we receive content over was finally embraced, when we realized the new era that we were in, what happened is that the content itself got dematerialized. The point of owning the content kind of fell away, because you entered this new space where you could simply buy a subscription to all content that exists, in a sense, is that all of it was just available, and you paid for the platform that accessed it for you. And this takes it one step, backs it up one step further, is that you could actually have all content of all kinds, like looking at this on the long trend line of like where could we end up at. This could be a situation where literally our ability to access and filter content is legitimately just a protocol. It's just a series of hosts and a series of pub keys as to who gets paid while you're browsing, and everything is just available. Yeah. Everything, nothing is behind a paywall. Nothing is like, if you just browse and explore, and then you can turn right around and host and produce, and everything is just a feedback of whether sats are going out or sats are coming in. Like, that's kind of the end game of this, is that just all content simply exists, and you can just navigate it freely. and you simply pay for what you consume, period. And like a good example with the magic internet money is that like if you read 3 chapters or 4 chapters or something like that, you pay for that and ends up actually paying in like micro payments the amount that is the full book, then the book is just unlocked for you. Like,
yeah, that's what I was listening to something. I think it was on your show about that guy where, that was probably, once you get to a certain point, then it just opens everything up because you could have had all you can eat access. You've now obtained that. And if it's like a monthly, you get the rest of the month unlimited and you stop streaming. That would be cool. When I think about the streaming video content, though, I think of things like there was a meme went out a few years ago and it was like the Anakin Obi-Wan final scene in the lava. And, Anakin is Netflix. And then it turns back on and it's like Anakin's Netflix and Hulu and all the other streaming services. And it's like, you were supposed to be the chosen one, and like all of a sudden, like it was like you bought Netflix, you had access to everything. And then all of a sudden, well, this was on Apple TV, this was on Hulu, this was on Peacock, this was on Paramount streaming. And now all of it was more expensive than cable when you put it back together. So you end up with things like, if there's something we really want to watch, we'll wait till the whole series drops. We'll get that subscription for a month. We'll binge it, and then we'll turn it off. Like if it's on Netflix, we'll have Netflix for 1 month. Well, if I can just watch Yellowstone when it comes out, then if Brian tells me, hey, there's this new show called whatever, it's awesome, and I start watching it in 5 minutes, and I'm like, Brian's nuts. This sucks. I paid for 5 minutes of it. I don't care. I'm not upset, which I think long-term makes more consumers because people are more willing to give you a shake if they're not having to buy into a month or $20 for the season 1 or whatever.
That's one thing. That's one thing that I've always thought about, like BitTorrent, is, people always say that it like steals revenue or whatever from artists or whatever. And like, not only in my personal experience, but just in general. And there was actually an MIT study from a group of like, I don't know, 8 or 10 students or something that did like some deep analysis on this and actually suggested that BitTorrent actually was a huge boon to obscure content and to stuff that people generally did not watch. It was the opposite effect that a lot of people claimed. And it's purely because when you get it for free, you're willing to, and like as somebody like my dad and I did film in school. I went to film school and I'm a huge my buff. If there's something even half decent, I want to go to the theater. I want the experience, and my brother and my dad, my brother and I would literally collect DVDs. Like we actually still have a DVD movie collection that's 5,000, 6,000 movies. Like it's massive. If they're worth anything, it's a good savings account, but they're probably not worth anything. So in that vein, I ended up finding, and like I downloaded a lot on BitTorrent as well. But so many things were either A, redundant because I always wanted a physical copy of it to own myself, or B, but I ended up watching stuff on my computer or on media that was connected to my TV more often, and the DVD kind of just became a hassle. Or I was downloading stuff that I would never, ever have watched. I never, ever would have gone to the theater to watch it. I wouldn't have gotten it on DVD, but I just wasn't doing anything. I treat it like podcasts, right? Is sometimes I'll just turn something on and just see if it's any good. I'll be doing chores and I'll just turn on some movie that I'd never seen before. And I'll be like, holy shit, this is a great movie. And then I'll learn about a director. I want my own copy of it. Like I'll start looking for these content for creators, for these artists again, because I was exposed to something that just never would have been in my realm of testing things had there been a $10 barrier, had there been a $20 upfront cost to go get it.
See, I look at all this and it makes me think of a couple things. One is there's this old kind of New Age type book called Self-Esteem Prophecy. And one of the tenets in it was that we would get to a tipping economy. Like you'd be walking down the street and you'd meet somebody and you'd be like, I'm trying to find this place. And they'd say it's over here. And they'd give you $1 or $2, which sounds ridiculous. And when this book was written, there was the proto internet. There was certainly no cryptocurrency. But then you look at what's going on now, because if I met you, Guy, and you didn't know me from Adam, and I said, hey, I'm looking for, Dick's Barbecue. And you're like, oh, it's right over there. And I tried to give you $1. You're going to be like, dude, I don't want your $1, right? And it would be awkward. But if you were in a app, a directory app, and I threw you some sats, you'd be like, that's cool. But everybody's cool with it. You've now made that exchange of value comfortable. But the other thing is just the sheer generosity of people willing to do stuff like that if you make it easy. So here's an example. This is also predating cryptocurrency anyway. Way back in the dawn of the internet, I started doing a lot of arbitrage, things like pushing traffic around and making money off of simple web pages. And the main way we did it back then was a product called Google AdSense, which is still how you make money on videos on YouTube today. That's the where it came from. And I heard about this dude named Perry Marshall had this book called The AdSense Code that said you could quadruple or even 10 times your earnings on your AdSense if you got this book. A little ebook, 50 pages, $99. So I go to his website, I look at it, and he's got testimonials. And the people's testimonials are listing their websites. So I'm like, I know how to do it. So I look up the person's website. I look at the ads, and I go, oh, I see what you did. And it was basically you made the ads look like content. You aligned images with them and stuff like that. Again, this is like mid 90s. So this is pretty maybe late 90s, early 2000s. And so I did it and it did 10x my earnings. Like that month, I went and bought the book because I felt like a dick because I took his knowledge and I used it and it worked. And I was also thinking, wait a minute, I got all that from looking at a couple people's web pages. Maybe if I read the book, I would be even better at it. So I was fully willing to give him value. The main reason I reverse engineered it is one, to see if I could, and two, I wasn't convinced it would work. But by having the opportunity to use it, I became his customer. And now this is 20 years later, at least. And I just dropped his name. He's still in business. He's still info marketing. So I'm still telling his story 20-ish years later because I took the chance and did his thing. So like, all these micropayments, all that does is give greater exposure. Like Fountain with the podcast apps, I'll pay them $50 to run exposure on a clip. If I can't win you in 2 minutes, that's my problem, right? If I can't get you to give me a better look in 2 minutes, and like how many other places can we do that?
I was going to bring that up too, the way that you said his name, like attention is currency. Like, and that's what a lot of outside of micropayments, that's the way that artists or whatever do monetize right now, is just through attention. And then again, selling an ad space that reaches a higher level minimum. So like, here, use this thing. So like everything's all about like gaining boatfuls of attention through unmonetized likes and then hitting that hitting that minimum. But so that future that guy was describing is like, everyone becomes a business. Like everyone then is a business. You as the individual. And I talked about this before that we like recorded too. A lot of the examples right now are very like software and infopreneur type stuff, but I don't want people that not everyone has to be an infopreneur. Like this can, if you are a like carpenter, like you could build the house and then get paid splits on the thing. Like you don't have to be, it's just going to make individuals compete with corporations better. Everyone can now compete with the minimums getting shrunk down.
So like, okay, look at Airbnb then. Let's take Lightning to the Airbnb model. And my person that cleans my property for me, that I charge that cleaning fee, when you pay, they get paid, right? We could use
those photos. You're booking photos, like that photographer gets paid based on the photos, or the people that make that furniture can get paid based on it.
Or a lot of the Airbnb people that are kind of big and they have 5 or 6 properties, they basically have a property manager, right? So I mean, again, how much disintermediation, how much transfer of money between individuals and entities are there that we can eliminate? Because that's really where a lot of like all the laborious, like when I do my taxes every year, a huge part of the effort that my CPA has to put into managing things is who did I pay and who paid me? If I can eliminate that and they're still getting the same amount of money, maybe more,
right?
It's not attached to me anymore.
Right. No, let's go all the way there. Like, so here's the other thing. The government has minimums for everything. Like if you get paid $600 or less, there's no record of that. Okay. So then let's use software to split every company interaction into $5.99, $5.99, $5.99, $5.99 with automated splits on. And this is like for the audience, like software is this powerful. Like it's this extremely powerful that
that's just
like,
the max you're allowed to tip.
Yeah, we can write around anything. Like we can write around all speed bumps. And whoever writes that thing that does the call them speed LLC creations or whatever, like they can then take 1% of everyone that uses that app to create their micro businesses. You know,
you'll know. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, you go.
You'll know we won. You'll know we're truly changing things when the legal and regulatory apparatus has to talk about how much you get paid in density per second.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Like they can't do it in amount. They have to do it. You have to do it as like a weight or a density and how much you get paid per unit of time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's, go ahead.
No, I was just time is money, like an energy, like energy matters. Like your energy, you as a person, like matters. And now you can, it creates optimism. It creates optimism when you're able to use your energy and see a return in real time on your energy. Another thing, like just classic management books, like what gets measured gets managed. When you can feel things happening in real time, you're more likely to like focus on them and do it. But when we are all like, oh, just swipe your credit card, see the bill later, or like go to work for 2 weeks and then get paid into like, it's just that everything is detached. And like central planners are trying to detach things. They're continually trying to detach things. Just eat the junk food right now, detach it from the thing. Like, but this moves it forward. Like Bitcoin talks a lot about like proof of work. Like you see your work, the result of your work, the result of your work, the result of your work. And you can make the little micro tweaks. You can make the micro tweaks that goes from your podcast at 1 sat per minute to 5 sats per minute.
You know,
it'll end up creating a situation, I feel like, where content, and I think we're already beginning to see this. Like a good example, a good like partial example of watching this is seeing people remix stuff on TikTok and YouTube, and you know, all of these things. Is like a good song comes out, or somebody just like what's that? The Sailor dude, like what was that thing that just blew up out of nowhere and everybody did remixes?
The one with the mummy?
No, the one with the one dude with the Scottish accent, the heavy accent. And he did this little sailor rant. I mean, that little sailor song, whatever. It was really, really cool. And like, there were like thousands of remixes on this thing. You end up creating content that's never done. Like the content itself is actually alive. It stays forever in edit mode. It just constantly gets better. It improves. It reacts to its audience. And
wow. Okay.
And the span of it's like the ability to customize things per your audience. You know, you could have
you can get paid as a curator, like curating, because there's so much like
being a filter for somebody else.
If the classic quote, if the answer was more information, we would all be billionaires with perfect abs. But the answer is not information. Like the answer is now the ability to curate information and then do something on the information. And so like I have like watched real estate YouTube, and then I went out and like got better at real estate. Like I've watched homesteading YouTube, and then I've gone out and just gotten better at homesteading. And so like the clipping down and be able to pay for clips is fast, like speeding up that thing. Like just and we've all experienced where it's like if you're trying to connect like a door hinge or something, and it's like, why did the person upload an 8-minute video about like this thing? Like I need to know the 15 seconds of this like mental block that I'm at. Yeah. And it's wild. Like once you learn how to get over things, you can like speed through them faster.
So you're taking the Fountain Clips model into like a YouTube universe right there, right? So right now, I know you just got on Fountain, but like, so people will listen to the show and they're like, okay, that was awesome. And they'll hit transcribe, and it will take the entire podcast and turn it into text in text blocks. You then go in there and you just click the blocks you want, you trim out what you don't want, and you add a title and hashtag, you hit publish. Like, so people are doing that with my show right now. What will happen is I'll see one come up in popular clips. Well, that person just took their time, made a clip of my show for their own use. That's probably why they did it, because they wanted that piece. But I'm like, okay, I'm on popular clips now. So when you like somebody's clip on Fountain, the creator doesn't get the money. The person who made the clip does. And it defaults to 10 sats alike. But you can go into your settings and change it. So I went and changed mine to 25. And whenever I see one of my clips get in popular clips that somebody else made, I hit it 4 times and I give them 100 sats. And it takes me 2 seconds to do that. And so one, I'm rewarding the action. But 2, now I'm forming a higher level relationship with that listener who took their time to help themselves, but help me at the same time. But like what you're talking about, we do this thing, we call it late night shenanigans at our workshops, and we have karaoke going on. And inevitably those videos will get flagged for copyright violations because even though it's all karaoke, they'll think it's Chris Stapleton singing or something. But what if all this music that gets used, like you said, like you use 10 seconds of the music, and that platform would have to be monetized by default, or at least monetized by choice. And now the artist doesn't care because some portion of every time that gets used, if money doesn't flow, it doesn't flow. But if money flows, they get a piece. So now that content is kind of immortal. Somebody said, we were talking about Meatloaf earlier, I think he died, so he can't get sats anymore. But I'm like, his heirs can forever. His heirs can forever. So like the whole copyright wears out after a number of years would be irrelevant forever. That entity, that creation, that's 7th generational thinking. My great grandkids might get a few sats at a time when a sat is a lot more than a fraction of a penny because of something I did in 2022. And that's where, like, you used a term, Brian, in a tweet today I saw, and you said programmable money. And it's one of those terms that every time I've heard that leading up till this period about Bitcoin, I'm like, it is, and that's awesome. But I can't really say what it really means. It's like when people said, like, the internet would take over, but we didn't really know what that would look like yet. We didn't know about narrowcasting and stuff like that. Now I'm like, okay, now programmable money makes sense. Every action that anybody takes can potentially have value. And if it does, the value can be rewarded. And it's subjective to the individuals in the interaction as to what that value is. And for all the crypto wars and crap, I don't know any other thing that can do that right now. The only thing I know that like fiat can't do that. It's not possible.
Certainly not.
And it's money. Like money is using it. So like kind of down that trail of like, well, like this crypto for this use case, or this crypto for this use case, or this crypto for this use case, or whatever. Like I don't need to be paid in like Fountain IOUs. Like I need to be paid in money. Like and money is then what I can remove from Fountain and go to the grocery store. Like go to the physical goods. Like I'm participating in this like software universe, getting paid money, but then I can walk into my Bitcoin meetup at a real bar and buy real beer that then gets split between the bar owner and the band and the person that brewed the keg. Like, but both of those things are happening with the money.
It's hilarious, actually. I'm not sure if you saw this, Brian, but there was a thread from Alan Farrington. It was Tasha. She was the one who did the NFT of the diamonds and then like crushed the diamond or whatever and tried to sell the NFT. She's an economist. I actually read a thread from her about how deflationary money can't work on the show and just tore it apart because it was just so bad. But she did a thread for everybody else that Brian knows, but she did a thread on like 25 use cases or something for Web3 or something like that. And Alan Farrington retweets every single one of them with another thread. And it's just like, oh, interesting. That's like something that would be a really great use case for money. And it's just like one after the other. It's like, oh yeah, you could get paid in a token that is illiquid and you don't know the value of it, or you could use money. And it's like 90% of the answers are money and the other 10% are securities. It killed me. As soon as I was getting down into the 20s, I was just laughing the whole time.
Yeah, because all of these use cases are basically, we're going to make a thing. And the thing is going to do these things. And this thing is really important because the thing is the thing that is going to be a thing. So we need a token for the thing. It's like, no, you need the thing. If you made the thing and the thing actually worked, you wouldn't need a token for it. And this kind of like destroys every argument. Go ahead.
No. Well, so that's why I brought up the word DAO earlier too. Like
Yeah.
money. So what is payment splitting? What is payment splitting? It's giving like payment to the people that did the work. Like, what is fundraising for a company? Fundraising for a company is someone brings the capital and someone brings the work. And that is the whole thing is about this initial capital and then these people doing some work. But like payment splitting allows more, like there's not really any other way to currently do it to meet the minimums. Like, because again, to meet them, like, and that's the whole conversation between like fundraising or bootstrapping and like people that start things and have companies taking on outside capital versus bootstrapping. Like now payment splitting and like micropayments is almost a third way of doing this. Like, that's another reason why it's just so like valuable. And you don't have to, if I just want to be a little solopreneur and do things here and there, do things here and here, I don't have to batch sell my time and effort, you know, to a startup for unknown amount of years to hit exit. Like, or I also don't have to pre-sell to a corporation that then is just extracting it from me in bulk, and then they're extracting it from the users like in bulk. It's now just way more free flowing. Like you, like I said, like you're walking through life, choosing what to use and paying people to use it.
So with the splits, think about how it gets rid of the very limited legitimate use case of something like an NFT. So let's not talk about pictures of monkeys or something. Let's talk about like a conceivably valuable way to do like where an NFT would seem to make sense. So I'm going to do an NFT for a vineyard. This was an actual product that was being developed. And so the way it would work is I have my vineyard, and Brian, you're a wine aficionado. You love wine. And basically you were going to buy the rights to 20 of the vines on my vineyard for 20 years and the resulting wine that comes out of them. And you could take delivery of the wine, or they could be stored here, or when the wine got sold, you got your share, right? Like they were your vines, so you have to pay for labor and processing and all that, but you get the same profit I would. Okay, that seems like a valid case for an NFT, but the only purpose of the NFT would be to automate all that shit. If you could take something like Lightning and build a layer 3 app that does that, the token is pointless other than transferring ownership. Well, it's mine. I could if I want to sell it to the guy and say, hey, I'll just push this over to your pub key and then you lock me out, so it's a done deal. We can exchange. I don't need a token to make that exchange of the rights to those lines. Or if I wanted to sell them back to you and you're like, you know, I'm going to be selling the vineyard, I want to buy like a company buying shares back. You don't need a token for that anymore. Like this does all that.
Right.
I've
Not
always
to mention
felt
we can pay the labor through the splits in both directions.
Yeah. Everything like when I dig into, I actively try to challenge my thoughts about the quote unquote crypto space all the time. Yeah. Because particularly with how big it is, like I keep thinking I've got to be thinking wrong about this somewhere, right? This can't all just be nonsense. But I just kind of keep coming back to that same conclusion. But the funny thing about NFTs is that like every single thing that I have looked into regarding NFTs, 99% of it is an authentication problem. Like 90, and I think it's just people not understanding the actual problem and a real way to solve it. They see a tool and they're like, ooh, what problem can I point this at? Rather than thinking, is this the best way to solve that problem? They've got a tool or a toy that they want to figure out how they can use it for something, rather than looking at the problem and thinking, what's the easiest, best solution for that problem? 99% of what NFTs do, literally the only thing that I think actually has some sort of degree of, oh, it would be interesting to have like a quote unquote digital scarcity, but if it's still issued by a central party, that seems kind of redundant to have it on a blockchain. But I don't know, maybe I'll leave room for 1% because I'm not 100% certain yet. But 99% of it is solved with either a public key or a signature. That's it. Those two things will actually solve all of the problems that NFTs boast their magic for. And in fact, NFTs make them clunky and difficult, like annoying to solve those problems when you already have a public key, or you could just have a signature of a payment or something. Like everybody talks like all tickets are going to be NFTs. No, they're not. That's a receipt.
Why?
That's a receipt. Like that's all you need. All you need is your payment details. That is every single bit of the authentication and the proof that you own the thing or the ticket to the stadium that you need, period. You just need a payment.
You're going to have a QR code you scan when you walk through the doors, and it says that you're allowed to come in. Like if I want to give you my QR code for money, I don't need a token for that. That's what that is. It's a desire by the issuing authority to take a piece when I train. Like I have, concert tickets to some badass concert, and I can't go, and I want to sell them to Brian, and now we're getting close and it's sold out, and I'm going to make money when I transfer. The concert people want a piece of the game. That was the entire, like when you listen to Mark Cuban shill that shit, that was his entire point that, we'll put controls on the scalping market. That's code for I want more money. I don't want the person that took the risk to get the full reward. I want a piece of their reward with no risk to myself. And I've seen other places. I thought it was a good idea, and now I'm like, you don't need it. Like there's another company that they were doing fractional real estate. And so you would have an existing income producing property. All the numbers are published, and I was going to buy. I'll buy in at $1,000, so I get 1/20th of this property and 1/20th of the income. And then if I want to sell out, I can't. Well, I don't. There's no token that's needed for that. That can all be done as a layer 3 app. You could literally build a real estate app right now for investment properties where the person could create splits based on your capital share. Man,
you think about like all the different, like the small things that could so easily be redone, particularly when you when you separate the platform, the host, and the payment. Like that's really what's happening right now, is that, or I think the true potential of this new economy or this alternative way is that the platform is no longer the payment wall, right? It's no longer, with Square and Venmo and all of these things, you have to integrate with Square and with Venmo and with Cash App to receive these payments. So when you end up posting something on the Apple Store, you take payment through Apple. You can't have the platform without it also being your third party, your walled garden for how to receive payments and what split and all of that stuff. This is the ability to select your host, to select your content, to select your network, and it have absolutely nothing to do with your payment. Your payment actually comes from you. You're the center of your payment infrastructure, and that you can separate out. You can actually spread out, where I will offer the platform this for hosting the content or making it available to this network or something. And when you start thinking about that, you can just put in operators. You can put in operators like something like LNURL. Like you could just have it. Like for instance, you were just talking about like people sharing little clips of your show. You could actually have like a 5% that's just open, like in your royalty cut, that if nobody's taking it, nobody takes the operator, it just automatically goes to you. But if somebody makes a clip, they can actually take that extra 5% in like a pay to anybody. They can take it and put their public key into the link attached to that clip. And then they get 5% of everybody who listens to your show through that link. And they're not going to waste their time. They're incentivized to find their favorite episode and make a clip for it, because they're not going to waste their time doing something, sending a link or a clip out to something that they think nobody's going to listen to, because that means they've done work and they're not going to get paid. But if they think a bunch of people are going to listen to this show, they're going to put their pub key in that 5% thing. And you've got an affiliate that you don't even have to sign people up for.
No, and I don't have to do tax paperwork. I don't have to do anything. And I mean, that's very close to a feature I've suggested to Fountain. They're just ass and elbows programming right now. So who knows when they would get to something like this, but a little bit more simplified. I just wanted to be able to say, I'm going to take 500,000 sats or 50,000 sats or whatever, any number every month. And I'll have pre-approved users that every clip they make, they get immediately 100 sats. Like, so once they've shown that they know how to make a clip that doesn't suck. So I'm not having bots make clips or whatever. So once you're on my approved list, there's a bounty for the month, and get on it. And it maybe even say, like, to make it more fair, like you can get up to 1,000 sats, right? You can do 10, get up to 1,000, and somebody else gets a shot. But I love Guy's idea because we already have ways that can be shared outside of Fountain. Like you can export a video. You can push people to basically a web served version of the episode. If you can somehow create tracking back in. So now Brian listens to my show. He's like, I like Jack. I like what he's doing. I want to help. He goes and starts spreading my show. Subscribers come in through Fountain or whatever. It doesn't matter what app, right? Like this is the protocol over the platform. And as they come back in, if that subscriber's contributing forever or for however long I say with my program, maybe 2 years, Brian gets 10% of whatever that user sends me. It's all automated and I didn't do shit. Now take that to like, I sell courses, like electronic courses, how to do certain things. I would love to pay my affiliates that way and not have to deal with my CPA 4 times a year going through all this and have her yelling at me for doing it wrong, right? Like, you didn't get this piece of information, or you need them to fill this form out, or he told me it was corporate to corporate. Well, where's this proof that he's a corporate? Like, they're not just for that all to just go away. And I'm not even talking about hiding revenue. I'm just talking about being able to say, yeah, here's how much I got. I don't know what anybody else got. I don't care. It's not my problem.
Think about how much global productivity that pulls back into everything. And when you think about like new people starting out, like a 14-year-old, 15, 16, like when they're getting their first job and then their choice is like, oh, here's McDonald's split program. Here's Starbucks split program. Here's what happens if I drive Uber. Oh, here's what happens if I'm a bug tester for this software program. And then you have like, talk about Citadel theory. Like then you have kids getting paid, like streaming, like straight up for doing tasks, and you're pulling in productivity. They're getting paid in real time, like quickly. And then you spread that across the whole society. That's because we're back to this minimums problem. Driving to a physical brick and mortar for the minimum that you're going to be paid, that then the taxes get taken out of it, it doesn't pencil. Like it doesn't pencil, so people don't show up, which is what creates lines at like grocery stores, and what creates lines loading. Like everything physical is like you can't hit minimums. You can't productively hit minimums. So it shrinks the amount of people that are even trying to pour their energy into like positive things.
Great. So I'll just say real quick for the stuff going on in the chat there. Yeah, we do put people in timeout. We don't ban them. But when people have an Instagram, like what's going to happen to the water supply, and we're talking about layer 3 technology, that happens. Anyway, and if you're not in the chat, you're listening to this later, you don't know what's going on. But yeah, we're having fun there. Anyway, what would be like your dream platform to see being built at the layer 3 level right now? Whichever one who wants to go first.
Social media protocol.
Okay.
Social media protocol.
Flesh that out.
I think so separating the hosting of the content, essentially, like think about it in the context of like podcasts. Podcasts are a great example. When I open up a podcast app, I actually have a feed of all my podcasts and the new episodes, right? Like those could just as easily be quote unquote social media posts in a feed that is like my social media interaction. The problem is how do you monetize? How do you find a host? How do you achieve connections and a universal, like a global space to actually connect to other people? You know, and this is why the alternative networks, Gab and Mastodon and like all these other ones don't work, because they don't have the reach. And it's particularly like with a federated model, there's no global feed. So you end up having to piggyback and trying to figure out how to monetize or how to prop up infrastructure that is almost always voluntary. Prop up infrastructure that aggregates massive amounts of information just so it's discoverable. And that's essentially what Twitter is, right? It's just the filter and the central hub so that you can find all your favorite celebrities and Bitcoiners and crypto influencers and all this crap, so that you can hunt and find the people, the quote unquote, the feeds, the RSS feeds that you want to follow. There's no reason it needs to be centralized. It's about solving the problem of A, your infrastructure, like paying for your infrastructure, and B, discovery. And I think there is going to be a peer-to-peer way to do this, and it will be one that simply works the cleanest and with the least delay And it just works. And that's why, honestly, I'm so excited about Keat right now. And they've built on a program, a piece of software called Hole Punch, which is built on a piece of software called Hypercore. And this is essentially, it's a discovery. It's a peer-to-peer. You've got voice, video, and just normal chat. You can share files instantly. Like when I dropped in, I had a 1080p version of Lord of the Rings. When I was testing this out before the other day's episode. And I just wanted to see it. I got it because of the meme that I made, Lord of the Rings, like Bitcoin Satoshi meme. So I had this file and I just dropped it in the chat, and the two people who were in there immediately, absolutely instantly, within a second, maybe two, it was in their feed and they could hit play and they could scrub through to the end. There was no delay. There was nothing. It was so fast. It was ridiculous. Now it's still bare minimum. The thing that I think would be really, really cool is how do you establish hosts for rooms and start to expand this out so that you can connect peers and separate rooms and like groups of people together. Because I have just left this open for like 5 days so that people can jump in and out when I post links to it. So people can try out Keat. I'm a quote unquote host, like I'm a seed, like on BitTorrent or something like that, for the entire chat room. Now imagine that anytime somebody boosts or, tips anybody in the thing, as host, I just have it built in that you can tip anybody. Anybody can put in the public key, but everything that gets tipped in the entire chat room, 10% goes to me because I'm keeping the chat room open. I'm the infrastructure. I don't have to run ads. I don't have to, I'm just getting paid by people using my room, by people downloading the content in it. I am simply a passive host. And even crazier is that I can do this while everyone has an encrypted channel or an encrypted group that I can't even see.
You're an incentivized host.
I can host content that's invisible to me, and I can still get paid for being the seed for that content, for that group, for that chat. And you can pay multiple peers so that people can get more of the split themselves by being a host themselves of the exact same room. And I just think expanding that and realizing what that potential is, monetization is the ultimate problem. Monetization and filtering are the ultimate problems, I feel like, for a social media protocol. How do you deal with the bot problem and how do you deal with the infrastructure problem? And I think the solution sits on Lightning. I think it's waiting to find the right recipe, and I think it's going to work.
I would agree with that because every social media platform we use, once it becomes successful, it becomes harassed. So we even have pretty small Telegram groups for individual niche chats or something. And next thing you know, there's somebody in there trying to sell porn or trying to. And if you want to sell porn, go sell porn where people want to buy porn. We're talking about chickens. Yeah. We don't need to talk about your porn. Or they're trying to
group, damn it.
Yeah, or they're pretending to be me, and they're telling people, if you give me some Bitcoin, I'll mine for you, which I don't do, by the way. Stuff like that's going on. I got people on Instagram right now going, "Hi, it's me. I'm Jack. I'm on my backup account, starting up instant chats with my followers." If there was a cost every time you turned up a bot account, or if, you join my group, I don't care if it's a Telegram type group or it's more like a forum group or whatever, a community like a Facebook group, I don't care what it is. There was a cost. It's 1,000 sats. It's not a lot of money. If you're not going to put that up, you don't really care enough to join. And if you get banned, it goes away. And maybe to prevent abuse, instead of me as the group organizer, I don't get it. The host gets the 1,000 sats, right? Now that there's a cost to poor behavior, there's going to be less poor behavior because right now, how many bots can I spin up? As fast as my processor can make them. That's how many bots I can spin up. But if all of a sudden it's costing me $1,000 a day to make bots, it's not very profitable anymore.
Yeah. But it's a security deposit, that's actually what they did in Sphinx chat app. And honestly, I still hope they kind of clean up the back end, because I really think the only reason why I don't constantly gravitate to using Sphinx is just because of the delay. I think too much of it runs over Lightning specifically. like as far as like how the messages and stuff are sent. If the messages ran and were as fast and responsive and easy to host as Keat, but you still had the lightning payments, you still had the security deposit to go into the room, and you still had the, the tips and the splitting payments, I think it would be a totally different game. I think the idea is right. I think the implementation just has too many bottlenecks the way it's built right now. But like I said, something's gonna click, or something's gonna catch hold. It's gonna be really crazy. I think I don't want to go off to another tangent yet. I'll hand it back to you guys, but I want to make a point here in just a minute.
Okay. Brian, same question. What's your dream app? And actually, I'm going to pull something up because I imagine this might actually hit you right here. It's fun. Where is it? I think I started. Give me a second because I think this is right up your alley. Here it is from K-Bonk.
Yeah.
How might level 3 help the physical product world, could it?
Yeah. Yeah. So everything the guy just said about social media and curating the room, right? I want the brick and mortar example of that. So there's an issue right now with Bitcoin meetups across the US. I get these messages all the time. Hey, like, do you pay to rent a room? How do you find like a bar? Like all this stuff. And I want where like Lengthwise Brewing in Bakersfield, California, like sells beer for sats. They brew it on site, sell it for sats. They run BTC Pay server. It's sick. What I want to see is the other meetup bars now, like getting that keg. And then I want inside that room where there's the 25 to 30 Bitcoiners, you can have, as the beer is being poured, like the bar owner, the curator of the physical room gets paid. The Bitcoiner meetup host who's curating and driving people to that physical room and playing community organizer, helping build a local snowball, like gets paid. The brewery gets paid per beer as it's pouring. Like, and the bartender who then like may or may not be a Bitcoiner, like can get paid to be incentivized then to adopt the new thing. Like Apple Pay does this. When you pay with Apple Pay, you get 2% cash back instead of swiping your physical card for only 1% cash back. Okay. And we talk a lot about discounts, like, offer a discount for Bitcoin. When you're talking to entrepreneurs, I would reframe that and I would say, no, charge higher for fiat. Charge higher for fiat. It's like a gas station. Like if you're paying with credit, you're going to pay higher than you do with cash. So that's one way for entrepreneurs. But
that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Don't say the word discount because we're already at how much it costs. We're already at how much it costs. Whatever they're charging right now, that's the minimum. That's the Bitcoin price. They need to raise their raise their price. And so getting all those people paid out in a physical room can work the same as getting everyone paid out in a digital room. And like we're there. Like we're there. There's enough bars meeting across the entire country that having this in your head, like we're gonna find those right entrepreneurs that are ready for it.
Awesome. So my dream app is where we started. My dream app is let's rat the state out, but let's take it beyond ways, right? So there's like things going on that are outside of blockchain. Like my friend John Bush has a project called Freedom Cells, where you basically form your local group and then you're affiliated outside the group. And it's kind of rooted into homesteading, exit and build concept. It's very Citadel-like. But imagine that you had basically let's rob the state of its ability to rob. Like the more eyeballs paying attention to what's going on, the more people know what's going on. And, I'm not talking about enabling people to actually commit crime, like steal other people's stuff. That's what I'm trying to prevent. So if you think about like how many times do you you're driving down the road and you're like, oh, well, something's going on over there, right? And if you had like a next door type thing tied in at more of a national federated level to where everything that's going on everywhere at all times that could be bad news for you or that you should be aware of was available. And then I think that you end up with something like almost like block confirmations. So like I'm driving by, I see John Law, I report him. So nothing, if anybody tips right now, it's kind of held in an escrow because maybe I lied. But then Brian comes tooling along and goes, it's here, he's here. And maybe there's a certain number of confirmation and then all of the compensation is released. And that could be a road hazard. I think cops are road hazards, but it could be a cop. But it also could be things like, hey, there's something going on over here. Like they're searching houses or whatever it is. Like I played a clip today on an earlier live stream where this guy who's the best statist jiu-jitsu I've ever seen in my life. ATF agent is going around and asking people to show guns that they recently purchased to make sure they're not straw purchased. No warrant. So the guy's like, you got a warrant? I was like, no. Okay. I'll go get my gun. And he calls the local PD. And he says, there's a dude trying to get in my house without a warrant, claims to be a cop, and he wants my guns. So local PD comes up and cuffs the guy. And, of course, he's screaming he's a federal agent. They cuff his ass. They throw him on the ground. He's resisting. They're doing the whole
I've got a medical condition.
Yeah, that, right? You got a medical. They tased his ass. Don't
tase me, bro.
Don't tase me, bro. No, don't do that here. Like, how could we get it to it? There's so many things that if you're aware of the fact that it's occurring, you stay out of trouble. Or, like, you know, sometimes when things aren't happening, when somebody gets there, then they never happened. I would love to see us disintermediate piracy, basically. It would be the anti-piracy app. Because when I look at a lot of things that are going on today, and if you're driving 90 miles an hour down a street with kids in it, I think you should have your ass pulled out of the car and have the shit kicked out of you. I'm not protecting truly belligerent behavior, but this idea that I can sit on a road on a straightaway where they just happen to drop the speed limit and write tickets all day, that's modern day privateering. And I want that to go away. And if it's not profitable, they'll stop doing it. Yeah. An example of how that works here in Texas, it is still illegal to have small amounts of marijuana on you. Nobody's prosecuted for it because our brilliant geniuses in the State House and Senate legalized CBD in the last session. And they didn't put any money for testing into the budgets of the local PD department. So if a guy gets pulled over with a small amount of bud, he just says that's CBD. Well, it's like a $120 fine, and it costs $500 to do the higher level test. So it's not profitable to prosecute. The governor comes out and says, all the local chief police and stuff, you will do this. And they're like, yeah, no, we won't. So now anybody with a small amount, literally, they just don't even do anything because you can't afford to do it. So if you can make state activity non-profitable, believe it or not, they actually care at that kind of a level.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the whole thing. You know, that's the sovereign individual thesis, is that the reason centralized violence exists is because it's economically profitable.
Correct.
You have to change the monetary incentives. Like the reason the state arose was because of the agricultural revolution. Our wealth, when we were in the hunter-gatherer phases and all of our wealth was something that we carried on our back, you couldn't enslave a population. They just put the backpack on and get the F out of Dodge, you know, like it just wasn't, you could not create the walls around wealth. And we did not accumulate enough wealth to make it viable to actually steal that wealth. It was not until you had oxen, you had land, you had a house, and all of your wealth, 99% of your wealth was stuck to the ground, that then a couple of guys with some big sticks could come by and say, give us 20%.
Sure.
Then it makes economic sense to give up that 20% because otherwise you're going to lose it all. You can't carry it with you. When value becomes digital, when value becomes pure information, and you become your content and things are simply accessible, and you can sell all of that for 100% of its value, or maybe 95% because you're in a rush to get the heck out of Dodge, and you can take that value with you in your head. You can memorize 12 words or 24 words, and you can walk away. You can walk away right like that hunter-gatherer. They cannot keep you enslaved. You can walk naked across any border on the planet, and you can take all of your value with you and set up shop and buy an equivalent house, an equivalent piece of land, an equivalent number of oxen or whatever your analogy. Like when you can do that, when you have that exit door from when every fake border on the pretend line on every map, it truly changes the economics of it. And you can twist these like little incentives. It goes from the big all the way down to the small. It's like when police and like people have cameras everywhere. If just purely by requiring police to have a video camera on them running all the time. I can't remember what county or city or whatever it was, but they implemented this and actually punished the police officers for not having the video. If the video wasn't working, they were punished for not having kept up with it, because now we don't have a record of what actually happened. Complaints, both from the misbehavior of the quote unquote the victim, the average citizen, and misbehavior from the cops, dropped like 2/3 in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
Everybody knew they had to behave because of this minor incentive about being around the cost of being violent. And this is where this can change that. This fundamentally does change that.
I get that because I'm a little bit older than you guys. So I'm from the days of the parent and grandparent internet. And in a small town, if you did something, there was no text message. Everybody's phone was plugged into a wall. But if you did some shit you weren't supposed to do, by the time you got home, they knew you did it. And a lot of the problems that we have with kids today, we didn't have back then, because you're going to get your ass beat. Like, and there wasn't, you had no, like, we could be in the middle of the woods, just me and my buddy, and like, they're going to know. They're going to know. Like, they're not going to know. And you get home and they freaking knew. And you had no idea how they knew, but it was because everybody knew who you were. And then, like, parents were doing their job, not just for their kids, but for other kids. Like, and to be fair, they were keeping us from doing stupid shit, because all kids do stupid shit. And I think your camera analogy is the same thing, guy. Like, if I'm a cop and I know everything I do is being recorded, I'm going to behave differently. And if I'm the person the cop's interacting with and I know everything I do is being recorded, I'm going to behave differently. And
exactly,
that's why I'm big on, I think people should be recording, like, in your vehicle, you should have a means of recording any interactions. And when they tell you to turn it off, say, I'm sorry, we're in a public situation, officer. I'm doing this for both of our safety.
Yeah.
I'm not
get a dash cam and a backup hard drive.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they say, well, I'm going to take it. Okay, go ahead. It already streamed. Like, that horse left I don't know what tech they're using from 1996, dude, but that shit's already out the door.
This shit's connected to cellular. You crazy? I got unlimited data.
When I think about all this stuff then, and I think about all the incentives like that we talked about the whole show, is like, then the private individual, we're able to pay higher. Like, we can pay higher and pay better wages. Like, we can pay higher. Like, and so you're literally, we're literally brain draining. Like, you're literally brain draining. And that's what's so great about like Bitcoin and about everything that we're like pairing with it, is that the actual like anti-establishment is now financed to the point where you can just brain drain, like overtime. Like, you'll know where the Bitcoiners live because physically the rooms are more curated. Like, the digital room is better curated. The physical rooms are better curated. You can see it.
That's
because what are cops? Cops are just curating rooms. Like, what are governments? Like, governments are curating rooms. And if it sucks, like, then it sucks.
So the cost of compensation is a huge point with this. So one of the companies that I ran back when I ran regular companies was a recruiting firm. We recruited high-level tech professionals. And our top recruiter, she was really good. She made about $225,000 a year with full compensation. But you know what she cost us? About $3.25. By the time we covered matching, Social Security, everything, like benefits, all that stuff. And no matter what you did, you were going to get roped back into it. So you can't say she's a recruiter, or you say she's a contractor because you tell her to sit in a desk, right? But I didn't tell her to sit in a desk. I just said, here's a desk for you. But that doesn't matter. If you do make her into a contract, there's a whole new line of crap that comes up and a whole new line of reporting. But if I'd been able to say, okay, here we go, we're going to create a pub key for you, and here's your node, and you get paid. And well, like it's Bitcoin. What do I do with it? You convert it into cash on an exchange. I don't give a shit what you do with it. But if you do these things, money comes out the faucet. And if you don't do these things, money doesn't come out of the faucet. Now, come tell me she's my contractor. She's not my contractor. How does she get paid? I don't know. I don't run a payroll. I don't ever touch her money, ever. And she doesn't ever touch my money, ever. There would be some level of, like, I don't know how you handle, there's some contractual things there, but because the contract really is not between her anyway. Like, she would be issuing a contract as my agent, but that doesn't really make her a contractor. She's just an independent business person now. She's a real estate agent selling houses, and maybe she's licensing my brand, is be the way that you'd look at it.
We need to reclaim some of these like crypto like words. Also, like smart contracts. Like smart contracts is not a negative thing. It's not a negative thing. It's a very like neutral to positive thing. Positive thing. Right. Right.
Lightning is literally a smart contract. It's a smart contract on Bitcoin liquidity to build an alternative payment network.
And
I'll tell you,
and that's where
I think it takes running a node to really understand it. Like it's worth doing. I've said to my audience, like most of you will not probably run a Lightning node long term, because unless you have a reason you're doing it, it's probably more trouble and it's worth balancing liquidity and all. But when you do it, you understand like, okay, so the way I opened that channel was actually using on-chain Bitcoin, and then it moved off-chain when I did it. So the transaction actually secured the underlying layer. Like I can say that, but if you never did it, it doesn't make sense. And then I've got to push a transaction across it to move the liquidity. Like once you do it, then you're like, it is smart. Guy, you're right. It's a smart contract. Mm-hmm. It's a smart contract, and closing the channel ends the contract, right? Like, but that's a hard thing. I don't really know how to explain it. I just used words that I don't know if you didn't do it, if it would make sense. You have a better way to explain it, guys?
So,
did you mean just like the relationship in Lightning?
Like how Lightning is a smart contract. What makes it a smart contract?
Oh man.
See?
I mean, it's difficult. Like the analogy that I use just in the context of like, let's say you had a relationship with Visa or your bank that had the instructions that a Lightning channel has, that had the same relationship with somebody that you have with on Lightning. It would be like they had explicit proof of reserves for anything that you had in the bank. That you still held the unilateral ability to leave the relationship with all of your money, and there was nothing the other institution could do, the bank, the payment service, the ISP, whatever, that you actually had an insurance clause in the contract as well, that if the bank ever tried to screw you, charged you a fee that you did not agree to, you did not explicitly sign off on, or tried to steal money from your account, that you could actually screw the bank and take everything that they had on their side of your agreement. Like all of those are the branches of, and if everybody is totally happy with the relationship, you can constantly update, you can make payments at the speed of light, and you can mutually and instantly leave the relationship at any time. All of those branches are in the contract. Like those are programmed in the little script of Lightning. And there's essentially, the way you update it is essentially you have a one-sided agreement where you are both able to hold the gun at each other's heads about the insurance contract, and you're loading each other's bullet every time you update. So you know everybody's honest, because otherwise somebody's getting shot in the head. Nobody wants to get shot in the head. So
it's a
that
Mexican
may have not
standoff.
followed at all. That may not have followed even in the slightest, but
no,
it's because it's complicated. It's hard to wrap your head around. I remember when I first read the Lightning paper, the white paper, back in 2015, I remember having this aha moment that was similar to when I was reading the Bitcoin white paper, that I had to meticulously go through. It's like, okay, wait, what? The relationship? What? Like I had to it was painful for a couple of hours. And then like when it clicked, I was like, oh shit, this is a huge deal. This is a huge deal. There will be a massive bootstrapping phase of this to build out liquidity. But once you have the underlying infrastructure, this thing's going to be magic.
So totally aside, like you guys just saw that come in. So it's my birthday. So my lovely wife just bought me a birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Oh, yeah, man. Cheers.
The 50. No, it's dead on. Like, I guess if you want to try to simplify it, Brian likes bars. So if I go to a bar and I basically open a contract because I take a card and I go up to the bartender and say, I want to keep a tab open. Now he's got my Visa card and he can charge that card. He'll actually run a test charge. And then me, Brian, and Guy, we drink our asses off. We have like a couple bottles of scotch or something. And then we settle up at the end of the night and it closes down. So it's like the Mexican standoff you described, except unlike the Mexican standoff, I can put my gun down and walk away. And neither side is really harmed by that. Like that's closing a channel. Like this relationship has done what I needed to do for now. And so like one of the channels I have open for my node, I have a channel open to Wallet of Satoshi because it makes it real easy. I just send a transaction to my own Wallet of Satoshi and move the liquidity over. But I decided the only reason I closed the channel recently was one, to learn how to close and reopen it. But I wanted to increase the capacity. So there was like Wallet of Satoshi wasn't angry that I closed the channel and then opened a new one with a larger amount of liquidity on it. Like it didn't harm them in any way. It didn't hurt me in any way. We were able to establish a relationship, end a relationship, and reestablish it in seconds, really. As long as it took the on-chain transaction to go off-chain. That was like 10 minutes. 10-minute block time, boom, we're back in business with each other. And that's how like people were asking, like, is there an easy to understand definition of layer 3? And the way I've been explaining, anything built on layer 2. Right. Yeah. So if I built like a Fountain would be a layer 3 app because it's built on top of Lightning. Breeze is built on top of Lightning. So it would be a layer 3 app. And I think that the only thing that we need to say in there is like, we're talking about Lightning Day, but it's not the only layer 2. Like Liquid would be another example of a layer 2 technology. So that's the beauty of layers to me is that, so Bitcoin is this pristine thing that I don't really ever want messed with. And so if you want to be innovative and you want to do new, exciting things and things that you've never done before, you want Bitcoin to be like the gold that is, and it's the indestructible rock. And then you need a place to take risks. So if somebody rolls out a new layer 2, and it's not Lightning or Liquid, it's Brian Guy, right? Brian Guy layer, and it sucks. Bitcoin don't care. And then we can take these risks and we can go. I don't know what the limit to layers is. You're going to build a layer 4 someday. I don't know, but I don't think it's actually that hard if you can just start out with the fact that Bitcoin is that immutable first layer. And then how high are you on top of that?
There's something really interesting about Lightning, actually, because Lightning as a smart contract is actually, it behaves right now currently as mainly a layer 2, but it's kind of layer agnostic.
True.
It can be layer 3, it can be layer 4, it can bridge between other blockchains and like all this stuff. Like it really is just a set of relationships, and it doesn't care where it is. Like you can do Lightning on top of Fediment, you can do Lightning on top of Liquid. You can do any sort of side chain with any sort of smart contracting, like basic script can write a Lightning channel that bridges between that layer. It's kind of like the universal liquidity between anything that you would build on Bitcoin in layer 2s. So Lightning is kind of a network.
My definition's dead now. Guy has killed my definition, right?
Lightning is kind of the interweb, the interpayment web between all different layer 2s. So you could actually have a ton of micro layer 2s, like in the context of like if Fediment became like a major player, where you have little communities run their own little like internal side chain, so to speak, that's private. Is that, well, that can then bridge onto Lightning, and Lightning is the interconnectivity layer between thousands of different little Fediments that you don't have to be on their network, on their Fediment network in their neighborhood in order to do business with them. You can still connect globally because Lightning bridges the gap. So it's funny, Lightning is starting out as a pure layer 2, and that's how we think about it. But I think at the end, like kind of at the end of this road, so to speak, Lightning is kind of a enter everything. It's everything above the Bitcoin layer, period.
Can I take it back to Jack's example of hiring like the recruiter? So like, what is a company and what is an employee? Like all the way back to that, like a company is like things written down on a piece of paper by a lawyer that then the government recognizes these things written down on a piece of paper. Okay, so that's really expensive to hire a lawyer to write these things down on a piece of paper for these people to recognize it, threat of violence, like all the way back up to the thing. Okay, so what did software do? Software invented LegalZoom, which so now you don't have to pay the physical like person anymore. Now you can get the boilerplate one faster. So, but what did it do? It just made it faster and lowered the cost. So now you can start your business that's recognized by the violence like faster and cheaper. Okay, sweet. But they still had the establishment still had the monopoly on what is money. Like even so, all of the contracts and all the stuff written on the pieces of paper all were back to dollars, the like base of this thing. So that was in their realm. But now, okay, what did Bitcoin do? Bitcoin made money digital. So now it has nothing to do with them anymore. And so now this whole thing we've been talking about is smart like contracts. Now the contracts no longer have to be written on paper by a lawyer or on paper by a piece of software. Now the contracts just are software themselves. Like now that the money is software, now the contract is software. So now even this thing of what is a company, what is an employee, I don't know. All I know is software. Like all I know is this thing. What even is that? I don't know what that is.
What's our relationship right now? Who's the employee and the employer?
I'm alive. Like I'm just alive and thankful to be alive. Like that's it. There's nothing. Like, what is a company? What is a person?
Do I even need to know who you are?
No.
For you to sell my product, service thing. I don't have to know who you are. The best thing you can be able to tell the government when they demand information is I don't have it, and have it be true and have it be able to be proven.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's like they can order you to give anything, whether they should be able to or not, but they can. They can legitimately require you to divulge information. I can't remember the wallet provider, but there was some wallet provider that when the Canadian truckers thing happened, demanded the customer information. Yeah, it was Nunchuck, right?
Nunchuck.
And they're like, we suggest that you go to Google and examine what a non-custodial wallet is. That was the response to the Canadian Parliament. Like,
we don't know, and it's by design.
Know.
There's nothing we can do.
I mean, first of all, it was a Canadian court ordering it from a U.S. company, so that's difficult to begin with. But in the end, the government cannot require you to divulge that which cannot be divulged. Mm-hmm. And so you can I can have a situation where, like, and there could be certain, like, if I'm selling something I care about the quality of my brand, then I can't have you making commitments that I can't uphold. But that could all be designed into a process where by the time the customer says, I'll take your a lot of our techs were like archaic technology technicians. That's why we could get so much for them, because the company was stuck with this old tech and there was like 10 guys left in the world that could do it. We'll take them, and they would have to tick all these boxes. We understand who he is, what he is, where he does, when he's going to be there, how it's going to work. So you can't screw it up, Brian. If you're my salesperson, I don't even know, because the customer's acknowledged the terms and conditions of my delivery. All you've done is put them into a process funnel, and my funnel did the work. You could be working for 20 companies. Let's be careful how we use that language, right? You could be gaining revenue from your service that aids 20 companies at the same time simultaneously. And if you want to go on vacation for a year, none of us care. Why would I care? I don't even know who you are. You're not saying, hey, boss, can I take 2 weeks off? I'm like, no.
And again, back to the whole thing, because it's so programmable, sweet. Make $600 a limit, make $12,000 limit, make whatever limits you want. Like those, like we dematerialize that entire thing. Like your all your constraints will just become another line, like in the thing.
Yeah. Everything just needs like a 3-line update to get around when it comes from like kind of regulatory apparatus. And what's so crazy is the ability to create these relationships. Like Liquid is a good example. Fediment is a good example. Lightning Network are great examples. No one is actually a custodian anywhere. Like by definition, nobody falls underneath the regulatory umbrella as I have control of the funds, because nobody does. You only have control of the funds as a group, as a collective, or as a joint entity. And in doing so, you've set yourselves up like a financial business, like an arrangement, a contract, a quote unquote DAO that exists that purely like where no regulation can actually apply to it, because nobody can actually apply the things the regulation requires, because it's nobody actually literally doesn't have control.
And that's the reason why we can't go out and create the better Uber or create the better Airbnb, like, is because like we can't, like as soon as you incorporate and get the docs and whatever, then like you're gonna be stuck in the same situation. But now that you can just like create relationships and just things can happen on the internet, like it's a lot. It's all open source.
That starts to like really define the differential, right? So Uber is not an app. Uber is a company that has an app. What you're talking about is making Uber an app. It's just an app.
Truly.
It's nothing but an app. It doesn't touch the driver. It doesn't do anything. It's just basically a means of exchange of information that takes a cut in order to exchange the information, which means then I can provide that service if I'm the guy that develops the app incredibly cheap, because I'm not going, guy, is your car newer than a 2008 or whatever? Like that's between you and your customer. Right, they're not my customer. They're no more my customer than when somebody buys a membership from me. and they pay through Stripe, which is basically a Visa MasterCard processor, right? And Stripe charges me a fee, and Visa gets their cut, and the intermediate bank gets their cut. Like that customer is not the bank's customer; they're my customer. They just charge a fee for a service, and that would put the app developer into the point where that's all they are. They're just charging a fee for a service. And the thing I really love about it, like the thing I hate most about big tech, isn't censorship, because there's a million ways around it. What I hate is data mining, data collection, and data sales. I hate the fact I'm interacting with people on Twitter, they're interacting with me, and their data is being sold to third parties. I hate that. But the reason they do that is because they have to make money. And if you're running an app-based business today, if it's not an Uber where you have a fee to take a piece of, how are you going to make money? Well, if you're running an operational node that enables the transactions between your users, there's your revenue. If I'm the new version of Waze, what I want is as many Brians and guys writing out as many 5.0 as possible. And I want maximum transactions across my routing node. Because if I have that, I have plenty of revenue. I don't need 9,000 compliance officers and people doing. All I need is the best development, the best tech I can get, and I can pay all my developers with a rev share. Right? Like you want to do something I can build an algorithm that says guy took all his time and he made this piece and no one uses it, so he doesn't get shit. Brian in 5 seconds developed this module that went in, and it's the thing that everybody's using. He gets a big old chunk.
Yeah.
This is what makes me excited about like no code and low code too, just becoming more and more of a thing, because as younger generations like continue to like grow up and like some level of familiarity like with code becomes like reading or writing or anything else, and then you have the no code and low code tools, the same way that Squarespace and WordPress and these things can like build websites. There's going to be that because there's so much things to be built. There's so many things to be built. Like and that's where you get can get so like philosophical about the like supply chain disruptions and all this stuff of like, there's just physically not enough people are like working because there's no incentive to do it. And I'm not doing the like, oh, like no one likes to work these days. Like not that at all. Like I'm literally saying like, it's sad. It's sad that there's a lot of people in the world that are like on the sideline because there's zero way to participate in doing anything. Like because of just the minimums and blockades that are up all the time. Like that's what literal like depression is. Like we can't find a way to contribute because there's so many blockers to contribute in.
So we could then you have to start getting there. Like people have to eat, people have to have places to go out, they have to have entertainment. Like one of the problems we have right now in the US is a legitimate labor shortage. Like in spite of the fact I think it's dumb that we're doing so much manufacturing and production overseas. If we tried to bring it all back home right now, who's going to do it? But I think if you were working for money that got more powerful, that alone would change that. Like we've been if you think about the youngest generation right now that are just coming out of high school, going into college, coming out of university, et cetera, like they come out feeling defeated. Like, what's the point? What's the purpose? Like when I hit my early 20s, it was like, if there's a door in the way, I'll take the hinges off. Whatever I have to do to be successful, that's what I'm going to do. And it's not because I was a badass or anything. It was just because I think like all my contemporaries were that way, right? The idea was like, this is the time to make it happen. The internet was just being created by Al Gore or whatever. And like all this new technology was coming out. And this idea was like, I got to get my piece now, because if I don't, the people on my left and right are going to go right past me. And now it's like, if I succeed, I still don't have anything. I'm still good. People are looking at their parents going, my parents are miserable. So if I go work as hard as they did, I have the future of being more miserable because I'll have less. Yeah. And if we have to change that whole paradigm, because I don't think there's a shortage of people. I think there's plenty of people to do all the things we need. I think there's a lot of money being spent on a lot of things that are totally unnecessary and don't bring no joy to people's lives. Yeah. We build non-durable goods. And I think that's like it's not really lightning. This is more a Bitcoin discussion, but it's back to like, I look at the most time enduring things ever built. They were built in eras of hard money. You can talk about four turnings or whatever, but in the end, the biggest differential has been, the Cathedral of Notre Dame was built when gold was money. If you go to Manhattan, you can walk up and down some of the streets of Manhattan. You look at a church, and the sculpting on the outside of the church you could not build it today, even though money's cheaper than ever, because nobody that could do that would invest 5 years of their lives into doing this one piece of sculpture because the money you give them is going to be worth less in time. So it's a complete paradigm shift. But man, it's a cool time to be alive, but like flux is painful.
Yeah.
And I think there's gonna be a lot.
Yeah.
I think some of the comments indicate that some of the people think we're talking about like some sort of pipe dream or something here. I think like all of this is doable, but it's still hard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's the content, the comment where it says, I'm skeptical of the practicality of everything as a smart contract. Material breach isn't an easy concept to put into code. I think it's a misunderstanding of like how things are going to align. It's not that everything will be built as a smart contract in the same way that not everything on the internet is crowdsourced, but it opens up a new avenue for things to be crowdsourced in a way that never were possible before for user created content platforms. We're going to have another step of that where the things that make sense that can be written as a smart contract that are concrete enough to actually program will be programmed. But more importantly, the key crux, I think, of all of this, the internet, the decentralization of information, the revolutions that happened in that era were in filtering, and it was about filtering the content, and it was about flow of the content. The major revolutions that people don't really think about, or like when you're really assessing how things behaved on the internet and what truly changed our entire relationship to it, the like button, the share button, the rating, the rate rated by users. Like those things fundamentally changed everything about how we interacted with the internet, and it created the concept of going viral. The ability to share with the next group of people and for information to spread and splinter in 1,000 different directions in 1,000 different communities all at once in a matter of seconds. Like that never before was something like that possible. It truly changed things. So in the information age and in the decentralization of information, flow and filtering were the major elements, I felt like. Or the major revolutions, really, in how information came about. When you're looking at money is a tool of trust. Money is ultimately, it is proof of work. It's not like it just Bitcoin runs by proof of work. It is proof of work. The reason I trust that your Bitcoin is valuable is because I know that you didn't get that shit for free. You had to do something to get it. You either mined it, you traded it with somebody else voluntarily. It took a lot of work. The better it is at actually proving past work, the more sustainable and valuable the society that is birthed from that monetary network becomes. That's ultimately all it is. It's a monetary network. Society is a monetary network. That's it. Mm-hmm. And so in that degree, when you eliminate the center of trust, the ultimate tools, the revolutionary things that will be built on Bitcoin and layer 2 and layer 3 in this new economy will be tools of trust. They will be, how do you break up a relationship that was previously dependent and make it beneficial and hold power into both players, into multiple players? How do you break up trust? How do you create new avenues where you can build trust between each other, where you can have a provable identity that you just is a NIM, but you just know that this is the person you've always interacted with, and you can rate their content, you can rate their communication more valuable. Your trust in the other entities can be your filter for how you receive and filter information on the internet. The trust ends up becoming the great filter that the internet has yet to solve, which only solved with centralized algorithms, which have massive problems and centralized issues and censorship and manipulation and all of these things. That's why like the web of trust idea and like what Synonym and John Carvalho and like all of them are building, that's why I think you put that on top of a peer-to-peer architecture and the ability to decentralize the infrastructure itself. Shit, you've changed how we relate to information. And information becomes weighted by who you received it from.
And we don't have to have all the answers now to know that we should come up with answers, right? Like, so Here's a perfect example. This dude that's in chat right now, Liberty Meat Solutions, awesome guy. I had him on the show. His name's Josh. He's a custom butcher, but he would like go to your house and like you need your pig processed. He'll go to your house, process your pig, package all your meat for you right there. Well, he's retooling right now to get certain certifications because probably vegans on Facebook ratted him out, and the state came out and said what you're doing is unlicensed. And there's this whole conglomerate, JBS and all that want to control all this stuff. But what if to even find access to him, you had to be proven trustworthy so that he can't be narked out by a vegan Karen? And I'm not saying like, because when people say, well, you know, an agent could get in and sure, of course. But like, how much effort are you going to put into this? Because like literally the people that went out and shut him down, the guy was like, I don't want to do this. And like, it was not ever like, it's a complaint driven system. So what if you eliminate the complaint?
Right.
So it's not so much that he would get paid in Lightning, but Lightning and Bitcoin would secure a network because I don't need to know it's Josh. I don't need to know it's Liberty Meat Solutions. What I need to know is this person will come to my house and not rob me, shoot me, stab me, take my food, kill my daughter, kick my dog. Like he's got a good rep. He's going to do what he says he's going to do. He's not going to like throw dirt on the meat before he packs it. He's going to do a good job. I don't need his name. I need his reputation. Like names come second to reputation when it comes to doing business the way we do business online. Like I would do business with Guy on a name-to-name basis because I know him from his podcast and I know him from interacting with him. Same with Brian. But if I didn't know you as a podcaster and I was buying off your website and people that I knew said, I bought from this dude, he shipped me my thing, it works. That's all I need. Most of my affiliate sales are not the brand I'm selling. It's my reputation. If I say this thing works, it works. If I say the company stands behind it, they stand behind it. You don't need to know it's Jack Spirko. You just need to know my track record. And so there may be a way that even stuff that seems so disconnected from the internet, Lightning, smart contract, like a guy that shows up with a pickup truck and butchers your cow for you. Because butchering your own pig, unless it's a really big pig, if you can butcher a deer, you can butcher a pig. You start butchering a cow, okay, it's without the right equipment, and even with the right, it's a job. And there were people that are like, I can't get into a slaughterhouse for a year.
Wow.
Because of the whole disruption from COVID and all. And like, okay, this guy will come to your house. How many people would there be like that if they could do it? Like we talk about people not wanting to work. No, people want to work. This guy wants to work.
Yeah.
He wants to come do this for you. But there's this roadblock. So the technology.
And then that's how you brain drain the establishment. Because now there's all those new businesses. All those new businesses are created that where the friction was there. The friction was there. Like, and then now all those new businesses started. That's literal wealth. Like that's literal now wealth on the side of freedom and on the side of decentralization. Wealth that was not previously there.
Monetize narcs. I say I monetize trolls. He's gonna Liberty Meat Solutions wants to monetize narcs. It's or redirect narcs, like the traffic app would redirect narcs, right? Let's hit. I know you guys are here. We've been here almost 2 hours. Let's hit a few starred comments, and you guys tell me what you think of them, and anything you want to say too as we wrap up. Thank you so much for being here today. It's a great birthday present. Mike V, I said, you know, what layer 3 solution do you see? Mike V says restaurant wait time. I guess if you had an app and you knew which restaurant. Go ahead.
No, because the servers can pick their own shifts. So if there's peak demand, it's just like Uber. Like then the rate goes up. Like the rate goes up, like based on how busy the restaurant is. So when you come in and you're getting paid in real time, you're more likely to like pick up shifts.
It's interesting.
Maybe like, have you ever been to a busy bar and then like you go behind the bar and pour your own beer? Like I just become the server that day. I decide that I'm going to start working at the bar today because I don't have anything else going on. So now I'm the bartender today.
So a lot of states have like a TABC requirement as a bartender, but that's just a piece of paper. I'm just saying, I bet you, you're at a busy bar. I bet you there's some people on the serve side of the bar that have the certification. So even if the state's getting involved that way, you know what? dude, I got it. And he just logs in with some sort of card, like a fold card for bartenders to get paid instead of to pay, and just says, I'm going to pull, I'm going to get the line down for you.
Yes.
I'm going to get the line down for you.
Yeah.
That would be even.
Or back to the whole ticket. Or back to the whole ticket thing. They'll pay me to leave the restaurant. Like they'll pay me to flip my own table faster. Like so now, okay.
So I'm sitting there and my phone rings. It pops up. It says 10,000 sats to leave now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Baby, we're
it's
going
like getting
to
kicked
the bar.
off the flight. It's like you get kicked off the flight. Yeah, exactly. And then you're incentivized to try. We talked about content. We talked about give away the content helps you find like more rare content. Like now you're suddenly at the dive bar. So suddenly we created more business for the fancy, like this fancy restaurant, and we created more business for the other restaurant down the street that doesn't get all the lines. Also,
maybe the restaurant down the street pays me to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I have a surplus. This restaurant, this bar has a greater
and then
surplus.
and then you have an overage agreement with the emptier bar. So now you're an affiliate for your competitor.
Oh, you're monetizing competition. You're monetizing competition at that point. I had an idea a long time ago, and I didn't really understand Lightning yet. But what I was talking about was monetizing the truth. And so we have all these experts that set all these policies. What if you wanted to be an expert, you wanted your opinion respected, and as a joke, I was like, we'll have a website called muexperts.com, right? Muexperts.io, since it's an app. And so you register that you're an expert, and you have to tender consideration to be recognized as an expert. And then that all goes into like an escrow. And at the end of each cycle, all the experts that issued opinions were right get all the money of all the experts who issued opinions that were wrong. Because it would be really interesting to see the wealth redistribution right now with opinions about like medicine and science and stuff like that. Wouldn't it? Like provable, again, like a smart contract type technology that says this thing did, it's a 1 and 0. This thing did or did not occur. So all the people that said like 10 million people are going to die. Did 10 million people die? No. Okay, fine. You all lose and these people win. And if you want to then continue to be an expert, you have to retender your escrow every it's quarterly, annually, whatever. And now you have a system where if you want credibility, you have to pay to play. And if you're right, you're compensated. And if you're wrong, it costs you. Mm-hmm. And that might be a little pie in the sky, but I think there's something there.
There's something in I would like going back to like the idea of what you could do in meat space, like physical products or physical services, is it would be very, very interesting. Like there was an idea that I thought was really cool that it was back in 2012, maybe 2013 in Bitcoin. A guy had nation state insurance. Ooh. Is that if you purchased in Bitcoin a insurance policy, so to speak, he was a journalist, an activist, and essentially, if you are attacked by the state unfairly, or if you were just attacked by the state for something that was not immoral, this included like things that were illegal, like smoking weed or whatever in a jurisdiction in which weed is actually illegal. Like it essentially has its own little like quote unquote rules, is that they would essentially run a campaign with your subscription funds to defend you, to bring you attention on the internet, to get your message out there, to get people like, signing the petition, like that sort of thing. It was an insurance policy for exposure of an injustice.
Okay.
Now I think the guy just kind of like fell away from it. The Bitcoin network was not there yet. There weren't even enough people who had Bitcoin for something like that to even be sustainable. So it like fell away after like a year or something like that. But it was immediately, to me, I was like, oh shit, that's a really interesting idea.
Like a Satoshi legal shield.
But yeah, in a sense. You can fund your own defense. And there's an interesting element of, could you have the Uber of security, of being protected in a space where you pay $10 or $20 a month or whatever worth of Bitcoin into some account or some local Fedimint or a federated side chain or something like that, where It gets paid out if you're ever in a hefty situation, and like somebody attacks you or whatever, somebody else who's also part of this network comes in and helps you. And then like a trusted relation. I mean, there's all sorts of problems, and there's all sorts of like proof and verification of these things, and like how these payouts happen. But in the sense, you're able to, if you can create a situation with the money where it's not trusted, where there is a you only pay for the service if you get the service. You can apply that to security. You can start to undermine the very reason you have police. You can start to undermine the very reason you have the state in the first place, because essentially violence right now is connected to control of the money, which means that the violence can be used to protect you, or also to abuse you, and take your capital, which enforces the ability for them to use violence. If you can protect your capital in that relationship, then the violence can only be used profitably for you, not against you.
Correct.
And you can begin to create a new relationship between somebody who has violent authority over you if you always have this key in your back pocket that says, you're not even going to be able to steal it from me. I'm going to destroy the money if you use this violence in the wrong way.
So it could end up even working more like a legal defense health share. So some of the health share alternatives to health insurance, like, dude, it's not just my money.
Crowd Health looks so cool.
Yeah, have you had him on yet?
No, I'm thinking of having him on, and I'm
Who's
seriously thinking about getting his service. My current like disaster insurance, which is stupid expensive and shit, just garbage. Like my quote unquote deductible is like 10 grand or something like that. I'm paying like $150 a month. Like it's awful. And I had like some stupid like random scare out of nowhere. Like I basically lost blood to my head, like a blood pressure thing. And it turned out to be like a totally no big deal. I had just been half working out more than I actually did. And I was not hydrated. I hadn't eaten anything. And it was just like a combination of things that just ended up with like an extremely low blood pressure for like a minute. But I got like $12,000 in bills from that shit.
Holy crap.
Like, it's just for a trip to the hospital. And like the insurance was like not even, it's like, why?
They didn't do anything. Yeah. That's, the only good thing out of my health,
I'm legit thinking about that shit.
What is it called?
Just doesn't make sense. Crowd Health. And they're partnering with Bitcoiners too, so that you can actually have a service specifically for other people who are Bitcoiners, and you can hold part of your funds, because you basically pay in every month. Part of it goes to a service fee for the company. This is as I understand it. I haven't actually been able to berate him with questions yet. But as I understand it, is you pay part of a service fee, which their job is to just negotiate price for you. You send them bills, and they call up the hospital and be like, "This is a ridiculous price. Get me something legitimate. Like, give me something sensible." And I happily would pay for that service. And then everything else, the other portion of your monthly fee is a savings account that can go to any of these bills that you submit. And then the excess is that you can fund it with other people in the group. Yeah. Like it would be like one of those things that, like, every time like a medical bill came in, I feel like if I'm in this thing, I would just put $50 on it to help pay off everybody else's, because I know that when my medical bill comes in, they'll return the favor, you know? Like, I'm actually I'm donating to the crowd for them to help fund me in the situation, if the situation is reversed.
So that's how some of these health shares work right now. Like, members literally vote and say, like, this is a legitimate medical expense, we're willing to cover it or something. But with a legal defense, it could even be more powerful, because most people need some form of medical care on an annual basis. So it's going to be any kind of insurance product is going to be expensive relative to its use. So a seldom used insurance product is cheap. A frequently used insurance product is expensive, right? So that's why auto insurance really isn't that expensive, because we don't use auto insurance to pay for oil changes. People want health insurance to pay for their well baby checkup or whatever, like things you're going to do on your annual checkup or whatever, where car insurance, somebody hits us, it's covered, or we hit somebody, it's covered. So legal insurance, unless you're selling it to criminals, career criminals, it's probably not going to be used that often. So by load sharing that, it could be incredibly affordable and incredibly powerful, where all of a sudden the state decides to come after Guy Swann because he's got too many people on Bitcoin. Okay, good luck. Here's a network of 1 million people contributing $20 a month. And now we are all angry with you. We are all upset with you. You picked on one of our guys. We're sorry. It's just our job. It's not personal. It's just that you picked on one of our guys and he meets the criteria for defense.
Okay, I'm just following the rules of our
We're just following the rules. We're just following the smart contract's orders. Like the smart contract has no feelings. It gave us orders, and now we have to do this because you did the other thing, and I'm sorry. Now bad things have to happen. And then that's like kind of going back to my dream app is let's disintermediate the state attacking innocent, peaceful, not people that are not harming anyone. And there was an app a lot like this where something happens, like cops are bothering you. You didn't really do anything wrong. And next thing you know, there's supposed to be 10 people with smartphones videoing them. And if you're in New Hampshire, that happens naturally with Free State Project. Anywhere else, this
you
app,
submit the video and you get part of the share of like that is decentralized protection right there. That's like crowdsourced protection.
So I don't know if it's still around. There was an app that was supposed to do this. It was called Cell 411. And that was exactly what it was supposed to do. People would join it. They would form these groups. And like you break down, people show up and help you. There's so it wasn't just law enforcement. It was, I broke down, I'm lost, whatever. Like your people in your cell would help you. Well, if you monetize that, it's much more powerful because people do what benefits them. Right. And the other thing is, it's not even about does it directly benefit me from a financial standpoint. If I have to tender some consideration to be part of it, I value it more. Like I give away my content for free, but I give away nothing else for free. Because if I give it for free, people don't really care. It doesn't really matter. Like I've given people opportunities with my brand and said, like, if you do this, you can have I've given people 100% profit on an initiative if they'll do it. Because I just wanted the customer to have the new thing. They don't do anything. They don't take it seriously. But when people have to put skin in the game, all of a sudden they're more involved.
Yeah. I found that too, that like the value that you place on something will correspond to the value they assume it is. Yeah. So that if you give away something for free, people are like, well, he's doing that because it's not worth anything. And it's perfectly natural. There's nothing, particularly in an era where attention is everything. You're going to waste 2 hours on content that, somebody else somebody else doesn't value themselves. So like, it's why like courses or things like that, like you might get 100 people to do your Bitcoin tutorial or something like that. If you have it for free, like a Bitcoin course or something like that, to charge $40 for it, you may very well get 1,000. So there's an interesting thing there, particularly when we're talking about like unique monetization methods, is how to treat your own relationship with your content to others. There was I had something that I was wrapping back around to and I lost it. I'm gonna hand it off. I'm gonna see if I can remember what it was because I thought it was something fun.
See if you can remember. JH says, how would a developer coming out of a degree program get into layer 3 for apps they build? Last time I wrote some code, it was like 2004 and it was PHP. So
So what I would say to anyone like looking to get into Bitcoin development is start like contributing somewhere. I always just shout out BTC Pay Server on that. Like I would join the BTC Pay Server live chat and then like ask directly in that live chat. And they have like product managers and project managers that'll talk to you about what you work on. That then will give you probably a more specific place to help.
Dude, build plugins for BTC Pay. If I don't know the ins and outs of it, but BTC Pay is remarkable. It is a remarkable tool, but there are a lot of things that I want to do with it that I can't do. I would pay out the ass. I would directly pay somebody who thought they could build a plugin for me to do A, B, or C. I would happily just fund it. I would happily fund it.
We need a website. I will pay out the ass.com. And you just put up what you would pay out the ass for. And then if somebody bills it, they automatically get money like that.
Mm-hmm. And that's why, so you want to grab some reputation, like on your GitHub, like with contributions to a place like BTC Pay server, get through that a little bit, and then, start tackling some of those.
And I would also say, like, whether it's virtual today or real world, many, many, many years ago, I made kind of a switch in my life from sales to marketing. And I went from making a relatively high six-figure salary to making a like $50,000 a year salary for about a year. And I did it simply so I could surround myself with people that were practicing the new trade I wanted to get into. And it made me so much better to work alongside them and see what they were doing and learn from them. And so get in anywhere you can, at any price you can initially, to work with people doing what you want to do. And you'll find that your mentors are not always people that are smarter than you or more important than you or make more money than you. They're people doing the thing you already want to do. And it's sort of like learning by osmosis, but it's not. I don't know how else to describe it. When you work with people who are good, you become better at doing what you both do. Car rental service for Uber drivers, so you can split fares. That would be cool. Doesn't Uber already have where you can rent somebody else's car?
Yeah, right.
Like if they're getting a driver, you get a car.
Oh no,
Turo has that.
Thank you.
Turo has that. What I was going to say is Uber already has Uber kind of has the non-Lightning example of this where you can buy a car and almost finance it with that you're going to drive on it. So they'll already kind of let you start going. But you're right. What does that all hinge back to? All that hinges back to lending is only done by these big places that then check credit scores and do all this stuff. And so then you have the barrier to entry of that thing. But if we get to the point of combining Turo and Uber directly of where if I have an excess car and you have excess labor, yes, it's just constantly easier to make these matches.
Okay, Builder of Castles says, anyone have a horror story to share for going to bank trying to get or transfer money? Layer 3 makes it go away. I think at least to a degree it does. I think Bitcoin to a degree makes that go away.
Man, I'll tell you some shit. It's the last time I went to the bank. So I have a business account and a personal with PNC. Dude, trying to connect it so that I can easily move money between the two. I almost never use them now. The only thing that my business account, if you look at my statement, everything is just a transfer to Fold. I don't actually use the card anymore, but I still end up receiving it to move a lot of things. Because I have a couple of Bitcoin loans from Unchained, so I still end up cycling through that. I'm hoping to get rid of it completely, but I have gone in three times to do the in-person verification to connect my personal account to my business account, just so I can go into the account online and say I want $1,000 to move from account A to account B or back and forth at the same bank, and I like I said, I've tried to do this 3 times. Still can't do it. I don't know what it is. It fails every time. They tell me it's going to be 3 days and everything's going to work. And I'm like, you've got to be shitting me. And I went in one day, is in the middle of the day. It was not busy at all. It was during a low time. There were 2 other people in the bank. So I'm in there trying to solve this problem, and I am at my wit's end. I'm so fed up with this. I'm just it's retarded that I'm here talking to you. I had to take time out of I had to drive down here. I am in person with you. Please, Jesus fucking Christ, solve this problem. And while I was in there, this dude comes in, and he's trying to withdraw $9,000. They said, I'm sorry, we don't have that much cash. And you have to go to your local, the one that's specifically in your area. There's an approved thing that he can get cash from. They had to turn him away. An old lady came in with a bunch of change to turn it into cash. They couldn't do it. They denied her. So 2 people came in. This was the only 2 people who came into the place while I was in there. 2 people came in. One to exchange one type of money for a different type of money, and the other to get cash out of their account. Both were denied. The bank, this is their only job. This is all that they do. I was dumbfounded. I'm just sitting here like talking to this person trying to get verified so I can move money in my own account. I was just like, holy fucking Jesus, Bitcoin cannot destroy you fast enough. God. I've been in since. It's like I said, it still doesn't work. I don't know it. I've been using Apple Cash to transfer. Like I move it to my Apple account or my Fold account. I've actually used Fold before too, because you can actually do ACH to move money around. It's like,
yeah,
you had one job. You had one job. Like
I'm new to Fold, and I think I actually heard about it from you first, Guy, and it's wonderful. I bought a $15 replacement for our Nutra Ninja because my wife dropped it and cracked it yesterday.
Yeah.
And I got like 3,500 sats back on a spin from buying a $15 thing, right?
What?
Like, yeah, because like extra spins, man. And I'm building my spin squad out. And like, that's like, you don't really think of Fold as a Lightning company, but it is, because all that Bitcoin that's moving around in the back end, that's all Lightning based.
Yeah.
If you think about the amounts they're moving, it has to be. You can't move 500 sats on chain and do it, the way they're doing it and make money.
Well, see, the thing is that like they actually take Lightning for like their gift cards or whatever. So like
Cool.
I can buy on Amazon with like a 3% back using Lightning. And like, I mean, Amazon has not done a charge on a credit card or a debit card of mine in, I don't know, however long I've signed up for Fold. I just do nothing but their gift cards. Nothing but their gift cards, and I get sats back on all that shit. But yeah, no, Fold is great. Like if you're stuck having to use fiat, I use Fold like crazy.
Yeah.
The second I can get rid of PNC entirely, the bank entirely, it'll just be Fold. It'll be Fold until fiat's dead.
So Liberty Meat Solution says Keat looks really cool. I'm not jumping it fully yet until they have a mobile, but it could replace StreamYard. That would be interesting. Like we're on StreamYard right now. I'm paying them to use their platform. If somebody gave me a platform that people paid to interact with us on, and maybe it would help us with the trolls. We've had trolls we've had to get rid of. Adam Curry has a thing. They call it troll army. And like the trolls are allowed to have a voice, but they have to pay to talk.
Yeah.
Right. So like, the old saying, like, I live rent free in your head. Well, now you have to pay. You have to pay rent to be in my head. Right. Like, so like, that's an interesting thing. Because I was listening to your,
you could absolutely replace StreamYard. It's so fast and the quality is like great because it's just straight peer-to-peer. And anybody who's actually watching the stream becomes a peer. They become a seeder. So the more people you have in the group, the better it works.
Yeah, and if you can make it really simple for the average person who doesn't understand apps, like
you have to do anything.
Like you install this thing and there it is, because so
you
right
install
now
and you have a link. That's it.
I'm using StreamYard, but I'm not talking to you on StreamYard. I'm talking to you on YouTube. I'm talking to you on Odyssey. We're talking to you on we're on Brian's YouTube channel as well. We're on Twitch, whatever. But what if we were talking to you on Stream App, right?
Yeah.
Satoshi Stream App. And so, like, then we're uncensorable. In fact, the app provider, like you were saying, they don't even know what you're hosting, right? They don't have any. Like, you're acting as a peer, I think you said, Guy, and that you can't even see if somebody else put something on there what it is.
Yeah, no, the way Keat works right now, like you just have to be in the group. But I'm just saying, because it's natively end-to-end encrypted, that it would take very little change for me to be a host of a room that I'm actually not allowed into.
Oh,
that I can't see anything that actually goes on inside the room.
That makes little goosebumps go up on my arm.
I have a comment to his point about not fully jumping in until they're on mobile. So I don't think it's always bad to like let apps mature until you jump in. Like, and so I'll just say this for the group. Like I go in cycles of like testing a bunch of stuff, and then I'll like delete a bunch of stuff and like move the stuff that I liked like to the front page of my phone. So it's like in my face. And then like today was like through the forcing function of coming here and talking to you guys today, I like got Fountain, and now I'm like putting it on the home screen of my phone and like going at it today. And so to kind of the comments throughout the show of the like, it sounds like we're talking about pie in the sky stuff that's like happening in the future. Part of the reason for that can be because you're trying to test out too many things that are like quote unquote buggy, just for lack of a better word, or like raw at the same time. That can lead to a lot of frustration. Like my wife and I just got done with like 5 months of like using like a Get on Zero, like Bitcoin, like checking app. And like we like hit very real, like frustrating like snags on that. And so that can kind of mute your enthusiasm. And so definitely like go in waves with that. And anyone who, just already is in like homesteading or any of that other stuff, you understand what it's like to like bite off more than you can chew or try to do too many things at a time, drive yourself thin or whatever. And so I would just I just want to say that like it's okay to tackle Bitcoin in the same way. Like if you're just at the stage of sending Bitcoin back and forth to people, sweet. Like be at that stage. Move the wallet to the front of your phone, like not in the back of your phone. Like move it to the front and like move on that. So yeah.
I think there's like some of these apps too are like helping people that don't even like the more advanced is helping people that don't get the less advanced. Like my wife still shows what is Bitcoin, how does it work? I don't understand why it's worth money, but I got her using Fountain and she listens to podcasts on me. She's like, I hear you enough, right? She's listening like with the kids, she listens to like a podcast called Get Smarted. And she listens to that in the car. She's like stacking sats on Fountain. And she's like, well, I get this. Yeah, I understand this, that today I made 1,500 sats doing something I would do anyway. It's pennies, but it's still like I was going to do this anyway. And like that like incentivizing attention, I think is going to be huge. And I'm with you. Like, don't try to do too many things at one time. And like have some patience with some of these next gen apps, man. They're new. I mean, Lightning's still in beta. And then you're building on a beta product with an alpha product. Like, give these guys a little bit of breathing room.
But then know that you're part of the process. So, like, her listening to Fountain in the thing is part of the, like, she is doing the work also. Like, that is helping. And so everything that may have been a little bit more of a stretch goal that we talked about today of, like, creating contracts between people and doing meat-based business and all these other things, like, she's contributing to that. Like, and so everyone is contributing. We're pulling more productivity out of everything. And because when you use closed-end software, when you go and use closed-end software that's just delivered to you, you're not part of the process. When you send in your feedback into the like dark hole feedback that a product manager may or may not read or whatever, that's working for a soulless corporation, like you're not part of the process. You're just waiting for the next thing or whatever. This, you literally are. Like Bitcoin, it's being built live right now.
I agree. Liberty Meat Solution says there's a WordPress plugin now that allows you to require all comments to pay a small Lightning fee. If a bot wants to pay me to spam, let them. I think that's like, so anybody could have built that, right? Like it's a complete open source environment. Anybody that has enough skill to do WordPress plugins. Like if you think there's a thing that WordPress should do right now, it's like the largest website installed base on the planet. To that earlier question, you could be building that right now. Let's see. Steady presence. I'm following the conversation closely to see what's next for apps like Airbnb. I think that's a natural fit. I think anything where money exchanges, there's a potential for splits. There's a potential to disintermediate these large mega corporations that have, to be fair, huge amounts of cost by replacing them not with somebody with better intentions, but somebody who just doesn't have the cost. Like if I can lower my price as an entrepreneur and do more business and make more money, I will. But if I have fixed costs that I have to cover, then I have to charge. And so, man, I think it could go anywhere. A restaurant. It's like the farm to table is ideal for it because basically they should be marketing. No, we don't have a fixed menu. No, we don't have any lamb right now. You know why? No lamb came in this week. This is what we have. So then you have a fluid supply chain and a fluid delivery end, and you need flexibility to make that work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go around the horn, guys. Thank you. First of all, thank you both for being here today. Thank you for spending over 2 hours of your time. I didn't see it going this long, but I'm glad that it did. Guy, I know you're busy as heck because you're a new daddy. And we even had some baby feeding going on here today. That's some multitasking. That's high-end multitasking. So thank you for being here. But tell everybody about yourself and where they can learn more about you. And any final words, any final thoughts you have on anything, take as much time as you want.
Yeah. So I am the guy Swann on Twitter. I host the Bitcoin Audible podcast. And literally, if you want to, I mean, I've been talking the whole last week kind of about this stuff actually on the show. And I've got a lot more coming specifically because right now, like, this is like super exciting to me. I'm actually going to have the guys on that are making Keat, have built Keat and Hole Punch tomorrow on the show.
Cool.
So I'm going to finally get to pick their brains. It might take 2 hours. But I'm the guy who's read more about Bitcoin than anybody else you know, bitch. And you should listen to the show.
I concur. Brian?
Hey, Brian Harrington. I'm at Brain Harrington across all social. I have a podcast called Bitcoin is Hard, and it's about the intersection of Bitcoin and personal finance. Because I think OG Bitcoiners did a great job of talking about Bitcoin, but they didn't super do a great job of talking about personal finance. And with everything that's happened in the last 2 years, I just don't like the old personal finance advice doesn't work anymore. And so we're writing the personal finance advice live right now too, and smoothing out, the future and the past. So I'm also just really thankful for Jack's channel because I'm like relatively new to homesteading and I'm working on like opting out at like that layer also. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, again, guys, thanks for being here today, folks. When this goes live on the audio side, if you want to boost us and you want to make sure that Brian and Guy get their splits, make sure you boost the episode, not my show, because I'm going to set the splits up at the episode level, both on the TSP side and the Bitcoin Breakout side. Again, guys, thank you for being here today, and this was a fantastic discussion.
Oh, yeah, man. Thanks for having me.